Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome, welcome. I'm glad to have you guys here today with us on this amazing webinar. So, this is the Client Led Workshop 2025 with SE Ranking. And today is all about our favorite topic within the industry, AI and SEO. So, we're going to be going through all things AI SEO, navigating search challenges with SE Ranking, especially with the new tool. So, just to introduce myself and who I am Rejoice Ojaku. I am an SEO manager at Daytime, but I'm also an AI strategist. I'm an inclusive marketing advocate as well, co-founder of B Digital UK. And I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to have you guys here with me. I'm excited to listen to the speakers that we have. I'm excited to be part of this with SE Ranking. So what do we have in store for you guys today? Well, we have quite a very few amazing speakers taking us through everything to do with AI. So we have Dana, we have Ben, we have myself, and we have Matt. Next slide, please. So we will be looking at the tools within SE Ranking, the features that they have. So SE Ranking, as you guys may not know, I hope you do know, they are specialized tools for every SEO task. So they have a complete SEO toolkit, and the toolkit is amazing. It does leverage at least 30 plus SEO tools, from keyword research to competitive analysis to backlink analysis and so much more. And what's amazing about it is that it gives you accurate data. The data relies on AI powered algorithms. It allows for things to be 100% precise because, we do service clients, and clients absolutely love that accuracy. But most importantly, they have collaborative features. So you can manage all your SEO projects on SE Ranking, from automated reporting to, giving access to clients and managing seats as well. Next slide. So let's just get right into it, right? Let's get into it. So we do have our first speaker, and she's going to be delivering from AI search snippet to sell, measuring AI overview traffic in GA4 and proving ROI. And that is the amazing Dana, who is CEO and founder at Kickpoint. Amazing. Here we have Dana. Hi, Dana. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Before we give you the floor, please introduce yourself. Tell us all about you.
Yeah, so I just said hello from Victoria, BC, Canada in the chat. I live on the west coast of Canada, so it's 7 a.m. for me. So I'm the early riser today. Yeah, and as you mentioned, I co-own Kickpoint with my business partner Jen. We're a Canadian-based digital marketing agency. I've been working in this field for 25 years now, so I have seen some stuff. In addition to my work at Kickpoint, I also founded Analytics Playbook, which is a learning site all about analytics, GA4, Google Tag Manager, Looker Studio, and I also offer courses and workshops. So my life, I just saw Joel in the chat, is my neighbor in Vancouver. Hey, Joel, I'm over on Vancouver Island, which is not where Vancouver is. And I find that one of the things that people are really struggling with is not just GA4 itself, that's obviously a struggle, but also there's so many changes in the world of SEO that people don't know how to measure these things. And this is one of the things that I really want to emphasize today, is being able to measure what it is that we're seeing from AI overview traffic and then proving that ROI so you can get more money to do more stuff.
Absolutely. So we're going to sort of give you the floor, and please, if you have any questions you would like Dana to sort of answer at the end of her talk, please just put it in the comments, and we'll be able to read it out. So I'll hand it over to Dana to sort of go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And one of the things too, like I'm really thrilled that SE Ranking asked me to be a part of this today. We're a proud SE Ranking customer, and we love the initiatives that they support, including Women in Tech SEO. And I'm really excited to be part of this client-led workshop today. So one of the things that has been the emphasis really for my entire career is proving your value, showing what you do, and SEOs, let's be honest, we're not necessarily the best at proving our value. And especially now with the world of AI search and AI overviews taking over, we are not getting great at doing this. Oh, I just saw in the chat too, somebody from University of Victoria is here. So there are some locals on the chat, which is great. So what I'm going to be talking to you today about is tracking AI searches in GA4 and then what you can do with that data in combining with what you get in SE ranking, and then what you can do with that data in GA4, and then how you can take that data and be like, hey, look at this great work we're doing. You should probably give us some more money. Because honestly, at the end of the day, that's what I'm here for. And there was a question in the chat about whether or not you can ask questions. Absolutely. I have left time at the end for questions, not just related to this. If you have some feelings generally about GA4 or tracking questions, happy to answer about any of those things. All right, let's get into it. So most of us in GA4 right now, if you load up a traffic acquisition report, this is what you see. Everything from Google gets lumped into organic search. But think about this. Someone who clicks through from an AI overview has already been pre-qualified for you by Google's AI. They've seen your content highlighted as the answer to their specific question, which is really different intent than someone who just clicked on your regular blue links search listing. So without proper tracking, you're really flying blind on one of the fastest growing search features in search right now. And we can't walk into a meeting and say, trust me, snippet optimization is totally worth it without data to back that up. So today I'm going to show you exactly how to track this traffic, measure its performance, and how to build that business case for snippet optimization that gets you resources to make that happen on a regular ongoing scale. So the first thing we need to do to make this happen is to separate snippet traffic from our regular organic search. The method I recommend is one that I've put together from the blog post that I'll link to at the end, but I'm going to walk you through the essence of it as opposed to the entire blog post because we have other stuff to talk about. This is an example of what you would get for an AI overview, and you can see that our post and nicely our YouTube video is coming up in the sidebar. So if you click on that link in the sidebar to come to our website, you'll end up with a URL that looks like this. You don't always get this. And to be clear, you can only track this traffic if you get a URL that has this highlighting. These highlighting URLs do not show up 100% of the time. They show up, I would say, probably at least 60-70% of the time, but not 100% of the time. The other thing, too, to consider is that this isn't just for AI overview traffic. People who click through from People Also Ask or the old school featured snippet may also see this text highlighting. So it is not exclusive to AI overviews, but the techniques that you use to optimize for AI overviews are basically the same as what you would do for People Also Ask or for a featured snippet. So you know what? Traffic is traffic, and let's make sure that we're capturing as much of it as you can. So my post here, and again, I have a link to it at the end, walks you through exactly how to do this. It takes 10 minutes. I recorded myself doing it from start to finish. I give you all the JavaScript code. You do need Google Tag Manager on your website to detect this. So if you haven't used Google Tag Manager before, now's a great time to get into that. I won't go through the full GTM setup right now because it is detailed in that blog post, but the key is detecting that information and then grabbing onto that information and then grabbing it and saving it as custom parameters, as in dimensions in GA4. And then what you create from this is an event. I call mine snippet text, for example. You can call it whatever you want. That records whenever someone lands on your site from those AI overviews, a People Also Ask or a featured snippet. And then this is an exploration that you can create in GA4. It's just a simple free-form exploration. And the only things I'm looking at here are the landing page, the start of my snippet text, and the end of my snippet text. And then I'm also looking at how many sessions I had that landed on these specific pages. And so this is one of the things where you're using Google Tag Manager to ingest this data, but then you're saving it in GA4, and then you're taking a look at this data and making decisions on it based GA4. Because remember, nothing is stored in GTM itself. You have to send it off to somewhere useful. And so that's where GA4 comes in. And so what's really interesting about this is you can see what text was highlighted, which is really useful. You can see how many people got to your website via these snippets, which is also really useful. But it's not necessarily useful yet. It's just interesting. Interesting doesn't get us budget. And I want to be really clear on that. And this is one of the things that I think SEOs make mistakes when they're asking for money, is they might focus on the things that are, oh, look, this is neat, or here's this interesting new search feature, but they're not necessarily connecting that to value at the end of the day. Interesting doesn't get us budget. Useful gets us budget. So let's talk about making it useful. Here's a really simple audience in GA4. So this is the other power of GA4 is you can create an audience in GA4 of people who came to your website via AI overviews, PAAs, featured snippets. And so this is just anyone who ever had this particular event happen and had one of those text highlights. So we're saying that snippet text was never not set. Essentially, it's a double negative. That's how you create the audience. And then you can see how these people engage with your website over time. Now, one of the things to note about creating audiences in GA4 is that they do not backfill. So you have to create this right away as soon as you add this event to GA4 and let it start building so you can have some audience information in there. Usually, depending upon how much volume of traffic you have, after a couple weeks or a month, you'll have enough interesting data that you can then compare it against what you're getting from a regular organic search. So now in this screenshot, I've created a comparison of AIO visitors based on that audience. So if you're in that audience, you're showing up as that comparison. And I'm comparing it against all our organic search visitors. And this is real data from my Analytics Playbook website. This is not a made up screenshot. This is real data from me. And we're running this for our clients as well. But of course, I don't like showing client data. So you get my data because I can show that to you. And so you can see it's obviously a much smaller percentage of our overall traffic. But you can see right here on the screen that we're looking at, even though it's only 4% of our sessions, they have an average longer session duration, 35 minutes versus 31 minutes. They have a higher key event rate. And this is the part that's really interesting for me. AIO visitors have on average a session key event rate of 5.9% versus all organic search people, which is 4.2%. It's still better than the average in general. It's a little bit higher than the overall average key event rate on our site, but it is significantly higher. And that to me says, wow, this is really fantastic traffic. And we have enough sessions in there. I'm not making this decision based on 10 people. There's a 230 in there. That's enough people for me to say, yep, this looks like it is converting better than average everyday organic traffic. So this is the part that I'm really excited about. So because it is already above, you could just take this insight and go to your boss and be like, hey, look, these visitors are converting at a much higher rate. Let's do something with this. Now we're talking, right? But one thing we want to talk about as well is when you give that narrative to your boss or your client, when you're asking for budget, intuitively, you also want to explain to them that Google's AI selected your content as the best answer to someone's question. So these visitors are probably more qualified. They're probably more interested in what you have to say. They aren't just tire kickers, to use a used car sales metaphor. They're actually ready. They're in the driver's seat. They want you to take them around the lot and show what the car can do. So something else you can do as well to prove the value of these visitors in GA4 is create something called a cohort analysis exploration. This is in the exploration section of GA4. If you haven't dabbled in there, all you have to do is go into the exploration section, scroll across the top until you find the cohort exploration, click on that, and then you get this chart. Very little work to be done here. What I'm showing is the percentage of visitors who came back again on following weeks based on when they first got to the website. And again, I have a comparison of AIO visitors, that audience, versus all organic traffic. This took me literally 2 minutes to set up. I understand that teaching GA4 is quite literally my job. So obviously I'm pretty quick at this, but even if you've never created a cohort exploration before, they are extremely quick and very valuable. So right here, this chart tells me that AIO traffic is valuable in really a couple of different ways. They're more likely to convert, which we already established, and they're more likely to return later if they visited the site via an AI overview as opposed to just regular organic search. And I can tell this by looking at, say, for example, the week 1 results. So week 0 is 100% because that's when they first got to the website. And then week 1 for AIO visitors, 18% of those people came back to the site again, compared to just 4% from organic search. Week 2, 9% for AIO versus 1% for organic search. Week 3, 1.85, week 4, 1.85 versus basically nothing by the end of week 4. So those visitors are far more likely to come back again. And that's how you can prove that is via cohort exploration. And if you've never played with cohort explorations, you can do this for any grouping of users. It doesn't have to be just AI overviews. It could be paid versus not paid. There's lots of interesting things that you can do with cohort explorations. So now I can pull together this data and I can start building my ROI case. I'm comparing our snippet track performance against our regular organic search for these key metrics. And again, to be clear, this is real data from our website. So one thing I want you to remember though, when I'm looking at this, GA4 data is not 100% accurate. No analytics tool is going to give you 100% accuracy at any time because there are all kinds of factors that could influence these comparisons. People have ad blockers, people say no to being tracked. There's all kinds of stuff that stops your analytics from being 100%. But we're not looking for accounting level insights in precision. We're looking for directional insights. And directionally, what this data tells me is that snippet visitors are consistently outperforming regular organic visitors across every metric that matters for a business. They're more engaged, they stay longer, they convert better, and they're more likely to come back. Even if these numbers are off a little bit, the pattern is still very clear. Snippet optimization brings higher quality traffic to our website. Once you've set up this technique, I encourage you building this chart for yourself. For every client we've implemented this for, we see that snippet visitors are higher quality visitors than regular organic visitors. But if that isn't true for you, I'd be super curious to see your data as well. And I've implemented this across many different niches. So now that we have our numbers, it's time for some math, but it's easy math. Don't worry if you hate math. I'm not good at math either, which is ironic considering I work in analytics, but we're going to get through the math of this together. So what I want to know is what is the business impact of these better AIO visitors? So we're going to put some real numbers on this. Here's what I know. Our snippet traffic converts at 5.9% compared to 4.2% for regular organic. If I have 847 snippet visitors in a month, that's about 14 additional conversions that we can attribute to snippet optimization. So if your average lead value is $500, adjust that for your business. Of course, that's $7,000 in additional monthly value or $84,000 annually that came from the better conversion rate of snippet visitors. That sounds pretty good, right? Now let's do an ROI impact analysis. So let's say you spend 3 hours optimizing each piece of content for your snippets. You do 20 pieces a year. Your time is $250 an hour, for example. This is an agency math, obviously adjust it for your own circumstance. Make sure to get your SE ranking license paid for as well so you can monitor those snippets and how well it's going. And so what I'm looking at here is about $16,200 in annual investment. If you just told your boss or client, hey, I need $16,000 to do this thing, they're probably going to say no. But you can prove that the ROI of this is over 400%. So again, this calculation isn't necessarily perfect. Your costs could be higher, your conversion values might be different. But even if I'm off by 50%, we're still looking at a great ROI. It's better than the ROI on paid, for example. Actually, and if you could move my head sorry, down to the bottom right, just on the layout, because my ROI, there we go. Okay, so now you can see the ROI was being hidden, but then you can see optimization cost of this being at 418%. And of course, you will get the slides afterwards as well, so fear not. And I'll go back to the other one. So here's the annual value of $84,000. Okay, you can show my head again. Thank you. All right. So now that we've got this math and we're like, yeah, this is totally valuable, let's go into that step-by-step process to connect all this GA4 data to your actual content strategy using, of course, SE ranking. So here's the 4-step process. I'm going to walk you through each step. First thing we're going to do is export GSC data. Then we're going to look into Claude or ChatGPT or whatever AI tool you like using. Then we're going to work in SE ranking for competitive opportunity analysis. And then we're going to create a priority matrix to determine what we should work on first. So first thing you're going to do is grab that list of snippet generating landing pages from that freeform exploration I showed you at the beginning and just toss the URL into Google Search Console and keep it to say the top 10 snippet generating URLs to start. Export that full keyword list. You're going to end up with about 1,000-ish, sometimes more, sometimes less keywords as a result. Not all these keywords are going to be gems. When you export the stuff, you get, you rank for all sorts of weird stuff. It's the internet. It shows up for weird things. Not all of those 1,000 keywords are going to be great. So then what I do is I ask AI to help me out. And so what I do is I'll toss in the keywords. I use Claude. Any AI will be able to do this. Any LLM will be able to do this. So what I'm asking it to do instead is to focus on just the keywords that are most likely to return a snippet, or in general, the keywords that are actually quite relevant for this particular post. So you can revise this prompt as you want. In this case, I was just saying, just Just give me stuff that's relevant to the page. I got about, I think 200 is this. I'll show it on the next slide. You can also be really specific and say only include results that are more likely to return an AI overview result, which will narrow down the list even more. So what you put in the prompt, totally up to you. But this is how I happen to do it on the regular basis. So here's my response in Claude. It's very proud of itself for connecting it down to 235 keywords. Of course, when I reran the prompt and said just things that are likely to snippets, I think it got down to 70 something keywords. But in this case, I just wanted to see everything that's on topic, whether or not it's going to trigger an AI overview. Then you take that keyword list and you add it as a list in SE ranking. Of course, you might need to add these keywords into the database, so double check on that if that happens. I name the list the post URL. So when I create that keyword list, I actually put in the full URL of the post so that I know exactly which post these particular keywords are drawn from. And even though I'm in Canada, I use the USA for the database because that is where most of our visitors and our business comes from. And of course, depending upon where you're optimizing for, make sure to pick the right country and search engine when you add in those keywords. You can also tag these as well to be for specific pages. So then you can take this in SE ranking and then you can filter the results that you get by snippet generating search features. So for these keywords, which ones are already generating snippet features? And so I actually have this as a filter preset in SE ranking. So I can just say, show me everything that is either AIO or PAA or featured snippet right away. And then I can save that to my keyword list, or I can filter this down and add tags to those particular keywords as well. So I know which ones are going to be performing the best. So now I can take these and I can break out my list into 3 different buckets. And this is where SE ranking, I find, becomes incredibly valuable, not just the ability to tag different keywords, but because in the data itself, I can see which keywords are already triggering snippets. I can see where I'm ranking for these particular keywords. And most importantly, I can see where my competitors have weak content that I could potentially beat. So for example, when I'm thinking about my highest priority pieces for keywords, I'm thinking about the ones that have high volume and weak competitor snippets. And optionally, if you're already there, maybe you're showing up in like the 5 to 10 spot, for example. Great. That's my number one opportunity, is to just make that extra push to get me showing up in those AI overviews. Medium priority would be medium volume. You have an okay content fit and the competition is beatable. And low priority, don't worry about these. Low volume, good competition and content gaps. Or on the other hand, if there's extremely high volume, but there's extremely high competition, leave that for later, especially when you're just starting with this process and you just got this budget sort of on a provisional basis, like, okay, I'll give you some money and try it out and see what you get. You really want to pick the winners to start with, because that is where you can get those quick wins and you can prove that value immediately, which means that you get more budget to keep implementing this process. So even though a high volume keyword might look really sexy, maybe you pick that slightly less high volume keyword because the competition is much more beatable in that particular space. So for example, in this case, I filtered for, and I often find for my keywords, because they are a little bit niche, it'll say that I only have, 90 volume, for example, for that term. If I look in Google Search Console, it is a bit more sometimes, but again, your mileage will vary. Your own keyword list is going to vary, but I can scan through this list and I can decide from here what makes the most sense from an optimization perspective. My page is already coming up for these search terms because this list is pulled directly from my impressions in Google Search Console. These already have snippets, and in this case, I'm looking at lower competition. So for example, one of the keywords that came up for me that I looked at immediately was like, yeah, this is great, is how to track AI overviews. Or people also ask tracking. Those are really interesting opportunities to start with. In that case, there's some volume, there's some difficulty, there's a little bit of competition. It's already kind of, if I had to pay for that term, I'd be paying $6 a click, which no thank you. I work in SEO. I don't like paying for traffic, but it is, we pay with our time as opposed to with our with our credit cards. And so in this case, that's a snippet that I'm like, yeah, I bet you I could probably own that snippet. So remember as well, the snippet optimization when it comes to making that content is not just about creating better content. It's about strategic competitive analysis. You want to go after those snippets you can actually win. Don't waste time on keywords where Wikipedia has that featured snippet locked up, or in my case, I often compete against Google's own help articles, and I'll show you a screenshot of that later on. If Google has that locked up, I'm going to move on to something else. I'll work on that. And if you haven't done a lot of work before in terms of optimizing your content for AI search in particular, and you're feeling a little stuck, Aleta Solis, who is SEO extraordinaire, if you do not follow her, you should. Her SEO FOMO mailing list is fantastic. She also has an excellent checklist. And I'll cover some of these items that I personally found the most useful, but definitely check out this post as well. It is fantastic. She published it in July. It's so good. Definitely check it out. She also has a spreadsheet that you can grab a copy of too. And leave that up for a second so you can see the URL without my head in the way. Thank you. All right. So some of the first questions that I always ask myself, and sometimes you write your content, you're like, oh, this content is so good. How could I possibly change anything? And then you come back to it a month later and you're like, what was I thinking? This is crap. Well, not necessarily crap, but over time you learn. So the first thing that I always start with is, do you have a clear hierarchical heading structure? Do you use H1s, H2s, H3s? And you might have, for example, if you don't load the content on your site yourself, you might have written a perfectly beautiful heading structure, but then when, say, the developer loaded it up, they're like, I don't like how this looks. I'm going to make this an H6 because it looks pretty. And so you end up with weird hierarchical structures as a result. So just double check that. Make sure that there's well-defined sections that answer specific questions. This is something that I really work hard on, is making sure that I have answers to questions in their own paragraphs. Do you put key information early in the document? A newspaper term is don't bury the lead, and you definitely don't want to do that when it comes to AI overviews. Do you use question and answer formats within your content? This is something that I've been doing for, frankly, years, because it's also a really approachable way for the content, because people are like, oh, I do have that question. Great. This particular content answers that question. Do you include what, how, why, when structure in your content? And finally, is there a date? I know that there was a big trend a while ago to just remove dates entirely from content so that people wouldn't think the content is out of date. Guess what? Dates are back. And so make sure that there's a date on your content. And one of the things that we have set up for ourselves and for our clients is a regular content review process, not to just go in and update the date because we updated the date, but actually to check the content, make sure it's still relevant, especially for my stuff where I'm talking about GA4 all the time, which changes approximately every 10 minutes. There's a new feature being released in there. I was saying before we got started today that what's nice about it is that at least I can rely on the Europeans to tell me what's changed. And then I can wake up in the morning and find out what's new in GA4, but it means I have to review my content a lot. You can also see what an LLM tells you. Just toss your question in there and you hope to rank for an LLM and see what it does. I was speaking to the Alberta Magazine Publishers Association, the #1 site on this list. Avenue Calgary is a member, and I was surprised that Claude did not fetch their post, but instead it went with a post way further down the list for their fetch. And so I just asked it, and it told me exactly what the issue was. It didn't see the actual restaurants in the list because, like many of these lists of top restaurants, they've been around for a while, they lead with that methodology. But the AI does not care about the methodology, they just want the list of restaurants. So as a result, just restructuring the content would really make a big difference for this particular magazine. And remember, too, that if you can't beat the result, just get mentioned on the result. There's also excellent opportunities for link building or content distribution hiding these lists. For example, we all know that Reddit comes up a lot in featured snippets, so work on your Reddit strategy. And then when it comes to content distribution, here's an example. So I was working on a project and I couldn't remember the annotation limits in GA4 in terms of how long they were. So I was like, I'm just going to Google it, even though I know I wrote a post on it, but I can't remember off the top of my head. And all the citations that came up were me, except for the actual Google resource. None of these are my actual website. I don't care. I don't care how many people learn about me or follow me. I don't care how people get to learn about me or follow me. I don't care that my content reposted to LinkedIn does better than exactly the same content on my website. As long as someone finds it and ends up engaging with me, that is all I care about. So technically this is a loop, but this is your ongoing process to optimize for snippets. SE ranking gives you the opportunities, content team optimizes for snippets, GA4 tracks traffic and conversions, cohort analysis shows you that long-term value, ROI calculation justifies further investment, and then you repeat with bigger budget, hopefully raises continued happy clients, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So my monthly checklist when I'm looking at this is how you turn this analysis into ongoing business value. Creating this monthly ongoing review process that connects your GA4 performance data with your SE ranking keyword intelligence. So every month I'm looking at these 4 things: how much snippet traffic, what snippets were won or lost, which content is converting best, and then I determine next month's optimization targets. You're really creating this feedback loop where your performance data informs your content strategy and so on. And I have a list of pitfalls you really want to avoid that I want to go over quickly before we wrap up. From analysis, don't expect immediate results from brand new content. It really can take weeks for Google to start featuring your content and snippets consistently. Sometimes it's quick, and that may be that Google was just looking for the right response to make that happen. And again, make sure to focus on directional trends, not absolute precision. If your snippet traffic converts 50% better than regular organic, that's an actual insight, even if the exact numbers aren't perfect. And strategically, the biggest error I see is, for example, if you can't win that snippet, let it go. So if WebMD has a featured snippet for a health topic, you're not necessarily going to beat them unless you're someone that's as big as WebMD. Use SE ranking to find those winnable opportunities first. So I have a 4-week implementation plan to get this whole system up and running. Week 1, this is, it's Tuesday. You could do this week. Get that tracking foundation right. Don't skip the validation step. Spend a few days making sure data is flowing correctly before you build your analysis on top of it. So then by the end of this week, you've got this data flowing into GA4. Week 2 is when you set up that advanced analysis tool. As you create that comparison, the cohort exploration. You can start to evaluate how snippet tracking is doing compared to regular organic, compare the differences. Week 3, you connect your GA4 insights to content strategy through Search Console and SE ranking integrations. And then week 4 is where you calculate that real ROI and start building those systematic processes around snippet optimization. The whole setup takes about 6 to 8 hours of focused work, but once it's running, your monthly analysis will really only take about an hour. Okay, and you'll need to hide my head again on this one. So here are the links I talked about. So this is my detailed setup guide and how to track these snippets. The second link explains why we focus on directional data rather than absolute precision. It's a philosophy that will change how you think about analytics reporting. And of course, you're going to need SE ranking for all these pieces, but hopefully you're already an SE ranking member. And if you aren't, go sign up. Thank me later. And then, of course, feel free to reach out if you run into any implementation issues. I also love hearing about how people adapt this framework for their specific business. So tell me about your wins. I love hearing about those. And now we have some questions. So who wants to go first?
Amazing. No, first of all, Dana, thank you so much. That was very educational. I don't use AI GA4 as much working in B2B. But I was just, whilst you were talking, I was thinking, I didn't know you can do that. So that's really, really helpful. So thank you. We do have a few questions within the chat. So one of the questions that we received was that how do you track or how do you evaluate following KPIs?
What are the KPIs? Oh, there we go. So percent of keywords triggering AIOs. Let's see, 2% of keywords. Okay, so how do I evaluate those? Percent of keywords triggering AIOs. That's something for sure that you would evaluate using SE ranking, for sure, because that's, one of the metrics you can get out of there. And then keywords where your domain is actually cited. Again, this is another SE ranking built-in report to take a look at. And then let's see, I don't know if she posted 3 or 4 or just those 2. But yeah, I would say SE ranking is absolutely the place to set those up.
Amazing. No, thank you so much. And we do have another question from Thomas Johnstone. Asks, do you need GTM or is it a general tag manager? He currently uses Pickwe Pro.
Yeah, you can definitely use the, I think Matomo tag manager. You can use any tag manager at all. You can even build it directly into the website. The JavaScript that's in that post it's just JavaScript. You can apply it anywhere. My audience mostly talks about GTM, so that's why I have that on there, but that JavaScript works literally anywhere. So same sort of principles apply. Use that JavaScript. It triggers when the presence of that highlighting text is in the URL, and then you'll save the values in your individual analytics tool.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Continuing studies at UVic says, can you define key events?
Yeah, absolutely. So can I define what a key event is? Yeah, so key events in GA4, it's the silliest term. Google decided to come up with this. Key events are conversions. So that's just what it is. And so if you don't use GA4 a lot, they're just conversions. They used to be called goals in Universal Analytics. Google keeps changing the name. I think key events is the silliest one so far, but that's what it is. And just call key events conversions, whatever you want to call it. I usually use what the client's language is. No client calls them key events. It's just that's what the screenshot says because that's what Google calls them.
Yeah, Google has very fun naming conventions for very simple
Fun
things.
is a word for it for sure. Yep, yep.
Thank you so much. Jacob asks, hi Dana, quick one. When you're trying to catch traffics from AI overviews and other chat tools in GA4, which channel or grouping rules or rejigs actually hold up, given how referrers get rewritten?
Yeah, so the actual refer URL doesn't necessarily get rewritten at all. If you are rewriting referrers, then I think your website is a different issue entirely, but the core refer doesn't actually ever get rewritten. So one of the things you can look at is what that refer is. I have another post on my website on creating a channel in GA4 and really you could use this regex anywhere, Looker Studio, Pickwick Pro, etc., on creating a channel specifically for people coming to your website from AI tools. So what you might see in your source medium data could be different depending upon how you've set up your channel rules in GA4, whatever tool you're using. But the original refer is usually there and intact. If you're seeing traffic come in and there's no refer at all, that means that there was no referrer provided. And if you ever want to check this, it's actually in any browser at all. If you go into, say, the console in Google Chrome, you just type in document.refer in the console, and it will tell you what the referrer was for that particular page. So that's just a basic web internet thing. But some websites are quite rude and do not provide referrers. So, for example, on Slack, if you're using Slack, even in a web browser, and you click on a link, Slack does not provide the referrer, so you can't see that it came from Slack. And that's an example of where the referrers get stripped, and there's nothing you can do about that.
Amazing. We have room for one more question.
Okay.
Continuous does at YouthVic said, how are you balancing the work optimizing AI with traditional organic search?
Yeah, that's a great question. That really does depend on what you do. So, because UVic is the University of Victoria here, where I live in British Columbia, and I do work with a bunch of higher education institutions. One of the things that I'm finding, and if there's other people from higher education here too, I find that people in higher education are really almost seeing the leading edge of where AI search is going. I see significantly higher percentages of traffic coming to higher education websites from AI tools, particularly Perplexity, which means that the youth, the kids these days, are using those AI tools to find stuff on the websites and then going to the websites to get the full information. But they are definitely using Perplexity as a search tool to then go to the website. So one of the things to think about is like looking at the people coming to the website from those different tools. And then that almost gives you an audience of people who are they prospective students? Are they current students? And then that can tell you where the gaps may exist in terms of people might be using Google and not finding the stuff. Or maybe traditional search is not really where you need to be thinking about. And instead, maybe you need to be providing a chatbot like experience for people to find stuff on your website, particularly for people who are on your website. And this is really what I'm seeing a lot of in higher education. I was working with a very large university in the United States, and they had, I think it was almost 11% of their traffic from AI tools. And it wasn't just prospective students, too, when they use different tools like Profound, for example, to determine what people might be searching for. It's for stuff like, what are the top law schools in the US, for example. So there's a number of different uses of this, and making sure your site comes up well is really paramount, not just on Google search, but AI tools as well.
No, perfect. No, thank you so much, Jana, honestly, for answering those questions. Where can people connect with you?
Yeah, so on my previous slide, so I would say that my link tree is probably the best place to go. LinkedIn is what I use the most. I'm there every day. I actually have another webinar after this. I do a monthly webinar on LinkedIn as well. And then my website is kpplaybook.com. I know it says Analytics Playbook. We're actually rebranding, so we'll be changing the URL in later this month. That's another great SEO challenge. Is a migration. We'll be at analyticsplaybook.com. But yeah, I would say following me on LinkedIn is the best way to keep in touch with me.
Perfect. No, honestly, thank you again so much. Thank you. So we're going to sort of move on to the next speaker, but before we sort of do that, I don't know about anyone who's listening, but I love a cheeky discount. So you can save 15% on AI search utilizing the promo code AI Workshop on to any of the AI search add-on monthly or annual before September 30th. And this would have to be done using your own account. So we're going to go on to the next speaker, and that's Ben Feltwell. So Ben will be speaking about Spy, Adapt, and Conquer. Love the title. It's about outranking bigger sites using SE rankings data, even against AI, Google's AI. So we have Ben Feltwell here with us today, and he will be delivering this talk, and he's the director and founder at Baldo Digital Limited. Hello,
Hi.
Ben.
Hi, thank you for the lovely intro.
Of course, but the intro's not over yet because you still have to give us a brief introduction
Yeah, of
about
course.
who you are. I know everyone hates doing that, but please let us know who you are, the work that you do. Sounds really exciting.
Fab. Well, I'm slightly more shaven than I am in my profile photo, but I'm Ben. I run a consultancy called Balto Digital, and over the years, I sort of did what most of us do. I started out with an irrelevant degree. Mine was in physics. Learned my way in the trade, working at an agency, all the way up to director, and then found out that my specialty and my passion was training and upskilling the teams to get better at digital marketing, SEO, Google Ads, website development, and sort of really working with the teams. Now that's just what I do. I focus with clients and I work with agencies in-house, from startups to big international companies. And basically the idea is just to try and onboard marketing skill sets to get everyone better at taking control of their own digital marketing as best as possible. You know, some people like to work with agencies, some people like to bring it in-house.
Amazing. No, you're doing your job for society, teaching everyone about marketing skills in the great world of SEO. So thank you so much. So we'll hand over to you, Ben, and I'm really looking forward to actually learning about what you have to sort of present for us today. So over to you.
Lovely, thank you. Well, I'll pop up my my screen, so hopefully everyone can see this. So I want to start with just the unavoidable truth, which is that SEO and AI, their AI is now here. I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon, and most industry experts think the same. AI SERPs are here to stay. They might not stay in this format, but it's already having a massive impact on the market. Now, this isn't the first time Google and search engines have tried similar things. We know that with structured snippets, with sort of localized map listings, they've been trying to make search results more dynamic, more involved, and more owned and dictated kind of by the search engine. AI seems to be the natural progression from this. This is the next version of your Amazon Echo device or your Hey Siri type thing. And it just is such a natural fit for search engines because it's how we progress things. You know, questions and answers, it's how search engines work, and it's how these AI tools work really effectively. So what I want to do with the time that I've got available is just run through kind of like how that impacts our sort of SEO campaign. And when we're researching and we're planning to do, you know, our keyword and competitor research, how we can start to fit in the AI elements within this kind of research, and obviously using SE ranking as sort of the example for it. So we'll keep an eye on the chat and everything, but again, happy to answer questions at the end as well. For now, I just want to sort of go through a standard kind of like SEO campaign. I'll try not to skip through anything, but apologies if I say any acronyms, I will try to expand them. So when we're looking at any kind of comparison, we're planning any SEO campaign, and we're going to be looking at a handful of competitors. In this case, as an example, I'm going to be using Monday.com, which plenty of us have either seen it, seen the ads, or had some experience with it. It is a very good project management tool. It's not the only one. It can be a good CRM. It's not the only one. So what I want to do is use them as the sample client. Monday.com, our imaginary client that we're working with, and we want to see how can we improve their SERPs? How can we look at what they're doing, what they're ranking for, and work out where we can go from there. The first step that we always do is look at who are they currently ranking against? Who are they currently competing against? And again, search engine competitors, always make it clear to clients or to line managers, whoever you work with, it's not necessarily business competitors. These are only overlapping for search results. So it might be someone completely irrelevant, but if we're competing for the search terms, we've got to put them against who their real rivals are, not who we think they are as a business. So in this case, Monday.com, I'm going to compare them just quickly against Asana and HubSpot. Might not seem like a natural competitor, but HubSpot, although being a CRM, is a direct competitor because Monday.com does try to be found for those CRM related searches. The first place that we always start with, ideally, is to look at sort of domain trust. And domain trust, backlink, and offsite SEO. Obviously, offsite SEO, EEAT, there's a lot more to it, but domain trust is a really key starting point that just gives us that rough benchmark. I mean, the way that I explain it to the clients over the years is, if you imagine that search engine optimization is like a 200-meter race, you and your competitors race into the finish line. Domain trust is not far off equivalent to the meters head start you get. Yeah, it's not a perfect analogy, but it gives hopefully a really good benchmark in terms of like an analogy that people can get their heads around. It's your meters head start in this 200-meter race or so. And then looking at Monday.com, they're ahead of Asana. They've got a good backlink profile, but HubSpot's a bit ahead. But it's just a sense check. And again, the reason why we do this, and I always do this before we do any keyword analysis or anything, is to set a standard. Are these competitors that we genuinely have the ability to compete against? The most important thing with all of our marketing campaigns is that, yes, they're ambitious, but they're also realistic with their ambition. I've worked with so many people over the years. The last thing I want to see is for people to be a bit too aspirational, have slightly unrealistic, goals, and then just fall short. Because if you fall too far short, and if you're setting yourself up against a competitor you can't really go against, you're setting yourself up to fail. And what we want to do is we want to have small wins all the way up to the big wins. So with this, HubSpot are a little bit ahead, but Monday.com's got a really solid head start, and they're ahead of Asana. So in this comparison, I would probably say 64% going into 71 and 58 initial estimations. We probably have a chance of taking on some of the giants. One second. So Alex just asked a quick question. In competitive research, which filters metrics tend to screen winnable versus the giants? So when we're starting to do this, the first thing I'd do, as I said, is really start with domain trust and offsite factors, because before you do anything else, technical SEO, we can normally fix quite quickly. Hopefully you've got a good technical team working with you, optimize the website, get things sorted as you need to with your meta, your alt, your links, and so on. That's easy. Content we control, we write. Again, that's relatively easy, although a lot of work might need to go into it. It's the keyword research and the domain trust that are the key factors here, Alex. So if you're planning to go against anybody, start with domain trust as a benchmark, because if you are too far behind, nothing you do is going to make a difference. You really need to focus here first. And hopefully from here, you can then start to look at your PR campaign, your offsite campaign, and how you want to build your backlink profile. As we know, Google hates the concept of backlinks, but as I like to explain to people, we're not trying to build backlinks. We're trying to build a profile of citations and references. We're trying to encourage other people to link back to us via healthy means. And that's what we're trying to raise, is sort of the benchmark profile. If your domain trust is too far behind, focus on other competitors, focus on other phrases. Don't be afraid to go a bit more long tail with your keyword phrases before you start going for some of those bigger terms. Everything you do adds up. So let's start with the small, easy wins, start with realistic competitors, and work our way up from there. If we then start to go from here, looking at the domain trust, which again, purely backlink profiles, we can then start to delve into some more of the details of the backlink gaps. So when you're running these tools, and again, it's another great tool that's built in testing ranking, we can actually see if we measure ourselves against some competitors, we can see if there are any common domains where our competitors are frequently being listed, but we're not. And just as a short file way to sort of get yourself started on this journey, offsite SEO takes a lot more than the 5 minutes or so I'll have to explain it now. But if you're getting started, having a backlink gap analysis means that you can start to work out, where am I missing the obvious? Are all of my competitors being listed on this set of directories, or working with these publications, this industry magazine, or a university that they're doing great collaborative work and sort of research with? Wherever you can find commonality, there's normally a precedent, which means that if someone else is doing it, you've got a chance of being able to get listed too. The worst that it's much easier to work on a series of backlinks when there's evidence that it already exists. Say to somebody, we would love to be featured in your blog because we see these other people have been, then start from scratch. No guarantees, but again, it's a great way to get started with these. So just to quickly answer, Damiana, how can you increase or grow domain trust? Again, it's the Domain trust, in short, is the quality and quantity of relevant and reputable inbound links. It's the shortest possible way I can explain it. Quantity and quality of relevant and reputable inbound links. So our goal with this is to identify where are we missing links compared to our competitors, where can we then find those opportunities, and where can we then encourage those links back to our website to encourage our domain trust to grow. It's not about link building. Focus on it as being a citation and reference exercise. They might feel like the same thing, but semantically there's a really big difference to it. The psychology behind going after it as a reference or citation building exercise is very different, and hopefully will put you on the right path to kind of improving it and treating it like more of a PR campaign and an outreach campaign. So first step, before we do anything in terms of keywords, always set your expectations based on domain trust, your backlink profiles, and then work out who your competitors are and a plan to grow to meet them if you need to. Then we can start to look into the keyword analysis. And the keyword analysis is where it starts to get really exciting for a lot of us. In this instance, I'm on the competitive research report on SE ranking. I've popped in HubSpot, who'll be one of the main competitors for Monday.com in this example. And I'm doing it by the UK because, I'm biased. I live here. I'm going to have a quick scroll through, and straight away you notice that there's a big old drop off in traffic. That becomes revealing in a little bit. And I'll just say to you now, the impact that AI is having on search results, especially organic rankings, is massive. We are seeing a huge drop off in terms of the amount of engagement and interaction the top 5 results are getting based on just the initial launch of these AI SERP results. I don't see that changing too much. Google might be forced to change it. We don't know what will happen legislatively, but for now, with the current market the way it is, if your website's seeing a big old drop off in terms of organic SEO, don't worry, we can start to have a look at the AI SEO and see if we're actually maintaining traffic through there. So going into our SERP results, to begin with, as all things, loads of branded searches. We'll exclude it based on anything that contains brand names because we're just not interested in trying to compete for our competitors. And then we'll filter out from there. And our goal, you can use some of the presets built into SE ranking because they've got some good inbuilt preset ones. But our goal with our keyword research is to always identify opportunities. If you're leading the pack, if you've got a great website, you're close or ahead with your domain trust, your technical SEO is there, everything's ready, and you've got some great writing ready to go, you can go for the top keywords, this. You can go for the most difficult phrases, but really base your choice of keywords, phrases, and targeting on what you think is realistic based on your skill set, your website's performance, your website's domain trust against its competitors, and then where you're currently ranking, search volumes, all these factors. It's not a single, the biggest number is best. We've got to pick our battles. And sometimes, instead of picking 5 top keywords, we might end up picking 50, 60, 70 long tail phrases that individually are going to add up to the same amount. Neither one's a right or wrong answer. It's about just creating that sort of portfolio of keywords that will generate the traffic. Because at the end of the day, what we care about is relevant traffic to the website. So through this, we're going to start to build up a list of relevant keywords. But, and this is where the AI aspect comes in, there's a new part to the SE ranking search criteria, and it's this AI search. Within the AI search feature, if we go to there, we can see how the search results are affected by AIO. So in this case, we can see that drop that I showed you in traffic is being replaced with a traffic from AIO. Now, these are estimated figures based on SE rankings, kind of reports and algorithms and the way they interpret things. But you can measure this against your own Google Analytics, your own traffic, to measure, is it accurate? Is it realistic? And what we should see, and have seen so far, is a fairly consistent representation that our SEO and our organic traffic is dropping off in places from traditional search engine. But hopefully, for a lot of you, we're seeing that being replaced with traffic from AIO sources. If not, you might find that you're losing traffic from organic search, and the traffic that you should be gaining back through AIO is disappearing. And if that's the case, it's disappearing to your competitors. And this is the thing that we need to start identifying. This is the new part of SEO, the kind of exciting fringe area of SEO that we need to expand into and really kind of like try to work out where we sit in this landscape. Now, I've waited until now to answer Lisa's question. Do schema markups add to citations and therefore domain trust? Schema markups and any kind of markup is just a way of kind of like validating the data that you've got in your content. So if another website is using schema markup and references you as an author, as a reference, as an external source and citation in their schema markup, sure, that can help you, that can benefit things. If you're doing it for your own website, it will have minimal impact, because the point of domain trust and offsite SEO is how the rest of the web perceives your website. What we do on our website is all about on-site SEO. What other people look to our website about, how they talk about our website, that's the offsite. And to affect our domain trust and our offsite SEO, if those websites include us in relevant schema markup for author bios, if we've guest authored a blog for someone else's website and we're in that schema markup, fantastic. But it's non-essential. The more important aspect of that is the reference source and citation as the inbound link. So hopefully that answers your question, Lisa. One thing schema markup can do is impact the AI results themselves. So I won't spend too long on structured snippets. I know that's coming up later in this presentation, but just to give you an idea of the work that we used to do in terms of structured snippets and schema markup to try and create those kind of like lovely results in Google, these things are being presented in the AI results. So it's just one thing to bear in mind. It's sort of like part of the result. Right. If we go into these and have a look at some of these results, we notice that the keywords that we're seeing are quite different, because the keywords in general for organic search is what we used to. It's just SERPs, our normal keyword phrases listed by popularity, difficulty, position, etc. The AI versions also have search volume and estimated traffic, but then they've got a bit more. They've got information like the link, or the type is a link, the snippet, which is the content from the AI snippet that's presented. So when you search for, what is the best project management software in Google, and it gives you this information, that is what SE ranking and similar tools are trying to like snip and pull out to present to us. Because what you'll notice straight away is in this result, there's no single best project management software. And after it's got away with that nice disclaimer, it straight away mentions Monday.com, Asana, and others. Now, there's a lot to be said about a good brand name. I personally am not a big fan of Monday.com because it's a day of the week and therefore massively confusing for most people whenever you're talking about it. But one thing that they have achieved as a slight accidental win is because their brand name is Monday.com, when it's mentioned, it's automatically linked in the AI chat. I think this is probably a happy accident. I don't think they saw this far ahead, but it does go to show that when the others are talked about via just, mentioning as words, Monday.com is linked as it is a website address, and they just automatically link it. Now, for the rest of them, they link them down here. But this goes to show a couple of things. One, this result is getting in the way of our organic SERPs, which is why we can expect to see a significant drop-off over time in our organic SEO. It might never go to zero. It might not go much further than it's gone below. It might even pick up a little. But our organic SERPs will not be what they were. They will be negatively affected. We won't get the same level of organic search traffic that we are used to. Now, as a result of that, we know that this is then an important part of it. Same like the map pack, the product pack, all these other aspects that come in, depending on whether you're looking for a localized search or product search, this is now one of those things. And most specifically, when you ask a question rather than just a short statement. So if you ask a question, what is the best project management software? What is this? What is that? Who is this? How do I do that? AI overviews trigger much more readily. But within that, there is opportunity. So within that, you'll find that a lot of the time, we still get these lists. And within those, they have the links. And that's where the traffic is coming from, or the expected traffic is coming from. So with SEO ranking and the AI search tool, we can see all of these AI searches that we're appearing for. We can see the snippets that are being presented. And from there, we can work out which pages are being indexed. And this is our first port of call. Just like with our old keyword research and knowing, we're being ranked for these pages because of these keywords, this is our opportunity to say, we're being ranked for these AI search results on this specific page. And we can then start to use that to go into detail to work out, okay, what are these doing effectively that we can interpret? So hopefully that's making sense so far. Beyond that, we can then go into, into our detailed reports. There we go. So into the AIO tracker. So when we're pulling these in to our project management or our project tools, and we're looking at the project tracking over time, we can start to pull these things together to work out how to track these over time and look at our performance and where we're ranking as these keywords progress. It's still early days, but between this and the competitor tool, we can actually see where our result is in those listings. So it's like we've got two types of search rankings that we need to be visible for now. We've got our normal SERPs. Now, where are we in the top 100 on Google, which we can measure through our ranking tracking. But now we've also got this AIO tracking that we need to do. And just like with organic search, the top results tend to have the majority of the click so far. They're also the most likely to be recommended via voice results and other sort of less interactive results. So, if we're looking for what are the best recommendations, we're not going to go much past the first few. It will give us plenty, it will give us guidance, but like with most search results, people tend to stick towards the top. So this is, again, another one of those opportunities where we can start to go into this and measure, right, where are we being mentioned and where are we in the top? Now, just as a caveat, one challenge with this is our brand name and measuring our brand name and our brand identity. Monday.com is a bit challenging because their name is a bit varied. But another one to watch out for is if you have a more generic name. greatdigitalmarketingagency.com. If we have a more generic brand name, it will become more difficult to measure tools like this. And we have found that AI tools like this don't always recognize brands quite as easily if they are too descriptive. It's finding that nice balance of, here is a name that is memorable, a bit different, and is sort of like standalone, or at least alone in its industry. At least Monday.com is different. No one else has decided to go for a day of the week. But HubSpot arguably is a better name, because HubSpot is more kind of like, it's less descriptive. It doesn't rely on any sort of other name, and it's a unique naming identifier that we can sort of measure on here. ClickUp is the same. You'll find sometimes you have no choice of the brands that you work with. If you're your own business, great, you can set it up. Otherwise, it's just something to bear in mind. If these tools at the moment can be quite brand name sensitive. So when we're working on it, we've got this challenge of, can the AI tools recognize our brand name as a starting point? Once they have recognized our brand name, can we measure and rank that tracking performance over time? Can we see how these things are listed? So whilst we're looking at the results, if we start to measure these, either via tracking them in the AIO tracker, or over here, we can start to bring these out and sort of expand on these. When we're looking into these, we can actually get a cached copy. So you see where it says cached copy up here by the results. We can get a cached copy to see what the AI result looked like at the time. And this is literally just a screenshot directly from SE Ranking. Their software will record what the AI result said as a perfect screenshot, and they just save it for future sort of reference. So really powerful for us to kind of like pull that data out and start to understand, right, this is the landscape, this is where we are. This alone isn't enough. But like with all SEO tools, what we need to do is combine all of these things together. So hopefully all of these individual things are starting to kind of like give you a flavor of what they can do. But the challenge that we've got now, and the thing that we have to do next, is to say, right, how do we then start to piece these things together? How do we then start to build a plan out of all of these bits and pieces? So going back to the beginning, working out the domain authority, domain trust, and domain plan. But the next thing that we're going to look at is, okay, where do we then go in terms of the keyword phrases, both in terms of the organic and our AI related phrases? And I'd say that it's not two separate exercises that we need to do. More when we're creating our keyword manager lists, when we're working out what keywords we want to be going after and which keywords we want to be targeting and selecting them to create our keyword management lists. Here we go. Let's find a few of these. Get some more. Digital marketing, value proposition. Once we start adding them to lists, use keywords, add to a keyword manager lists, create a new list, test. Classic name. When we start to add these, we can start to then go into the keyword list itself and filter them and tag them. So as we're going through here, we can identify keywords that we think are going to be AI relevant tools or AI relevant keywords, and we can start to tag those in our keyword manager lists, because we know we've got a list of our normal keywords, but then we've also got these specific keywords which aren't just normal, they're kind of like AIO. And for those keywords, we're going to have to do a little bit extra work, or we might have to change the way that we structure our content, structure our articles to really work to not just the organic search results, but the AI-based search results. So Sarah's just asked a question. Hi, Sarah. What ranking views do you show stakeholders to prove momentum? It's a really good question, actually. So she's asked, I'll ask the question for. So what ranking views do you show stakeholders to prove momentum against larger brands, and how do you call out gains when AIOs are changing which results get seen? Thank you for hearty. I would always be very selective. So when we're creating a project list, if I go back to, where have we got it? Here we go. Just find I've got all the tabs open. So going back to keyword overviews. I always focus on groups and selective keywords. So when we're going into here, it's very easy to get bogged down with so much data. And stakeholders, if nothing else, like actionable, clear insights. What they're looking for is information that tells them, what are you doing well? What are you not doing well? What's an area that's succeeding? What's an area that's not succeeding? The most common, also the most efficient way of doing that tends to be from going to grouping your keywords together and showing things by those key groupings. So looking through here, if I'm going to look at these keywords that I've added to the tracking, I'm going to look at project management. So project management. Right, here are all the keywords that we're tracking in our current project. I'm going to select them all, make sure that they're all relevant. Yeah, and then I'm going to add them to a subfolder. Create a new folder and call them project management. There we go. Those are all added to project management. We're then going to go and look at all of the other areas. There we go. And we're going to start grouping by the different folders. Because what I want to do is I want to create a series of folders where we have one for each core bit. So we're going to have project management, CRM, Gantt charts, whatever else it might be. Now, for me, if I was doing one for digital marketing, it might be we're looking at one for SEO, SEM, social media, website development. We want to sort of group by those key areas, but within those areas, we have to be careful. It's very easy to get focused on tracking all of the detailed keywords. And that can be great for us. But if that's the case, we probably need to be running two projects. One that gives us all of the information, and another one that focuses on highlights core indicator keywords. So for me, core indicator keywords are like sort of like cornerstone. These are the keywords that we really need to make sure that this keyword ranks well. It doesn't matter if all the variations do or don't, because generally speaking, what we'll find is for every time that we've got a keyword that goes up, we've got a couple that go down. They might be very similar. And so you get all this little fluctuations, and that's just too much granular detail. What we're looking for is, here is a good indicator keyword. How is this one performing? If it's performing well, it should we should note that all of the others are performing well. So when we're presenting to stakeholders or to clients, we want to make sure that we're very selective about the keywords, not to hide anything, but more to be clearer and more transparent with what we're showing to them. We don't need them to see all of the data. We need them to see a selection of key data that gives them instant insights. And I would suggest that we do this by having fewer targeted keywords and grouping them together based on topic interest, so that the clients can just say, that group is doing well. That group has gone back a little bit. And then if they have questions, you can then go to the original database and expand that out for a lot more information. So hopefully that answers your question, Sarah. Becky, Becky's answer, so I don't know if we can highlight this. How has the recent Google move away from top 100 results function affected SE Ranking's ability to provide accurate ranking data? Probably one for the SE Ranking team, though I would sort of suggest that once you get beyond sort of 50 or so, the results have always fluctuated quite a bit, because top 10, top 20, those can be fairly standardized, but there is always some level of personality or personalization and some sort of like dynamic tuning. You're almost always signed into Google. It's got your location. It's got so many factors about you. It's got your Google signals coming in from Google Analytics and the other sources. So having a completely anonymized research results all the way up to 100, for me, always seemed ambitious for any platform. And the accuracy wasn't always there to an extent that I would probably quote on. For me, if you're in the top 100, it's just to show signs. Are you gaining or are you going backwards? That's about it. Really what we care about is when we're getting into the top 20. Top 30 shows you're close, but really top 20 onwards is when we care about the specific accuracy of the rankings. Anything beyond top 20, I'd say, is more of like an indication for your momentum. Are you gaining? Are you losing? Are you kind of stagnating? But I would always treat those results as a pinch of salt. And the same with any data. And this is probably coming more from my degree than from anything else. When you look at numbers, what we're looking at is an estimation of the information. None of these things are actually 100% real, because yes, 20 people might have searched for that search result last month, but it might have been 23, it might have been 16, it might have been 58 and we had a spike, but they didn't quite catch it, because none of these tools are perfect and none of these tools are all invasive. We wouldn't want them to be as consumers. And in fact, that's one thing that GDPR and other data protection laws are coming into play. They are obscuring our access to analytics. And that's a good thing for consumers, a more challenging thing for marketers. I won't say it's a bad thing, more challenging thing for marketers, but it means that when we're looking at data, I would strongly recommend that we don't try to treat numbers at true face value. We look at them as patterns, as behaviors, as models that we can kind of use to predict things. But again, one system will not equal another system. So Google Analytics won't equal SE Ranking. SE Ranking won't equal any others. They all measure that in their own way. As long as they're consistent within themselves and they show trends and patterns, that's what we're after. Lisa's asked again, what keywords are included in the tracking setup for AIO Tracker? So with this, it will be looking for keywords that we're ranking well for, in the same sense of, if I flicker over to the AIO Tracker, there we go. This is based on the keywords that we add to the project. So if we're looking at the AIO Tracker, this is what we're looking at as we are looking to measure these results over time, just like you would with your project keywords. And the way that we do this is actually through adding your project keywords. So first you would add your keywords, as you normally would in your rankings, to a project. Once you're happy with that, you would go into your tracking setup, and then you can select the keywords from your project and add them into your AIO Tracker. If you want to research them as something slightly differently, I'd recommend that we start doing that with our competitive research. And we can do that against ourselves. And again, one of my favorite uses for the competitive research tool is to look at your own website or your client's own website and understand what is the lay of the land as it is, because it gives you so much more information than just Google Search Console or something similar. And it will help you find those AI results that we're already ranking for. And therefore, we would probably want to include in our keyword ranking reports, our AIO Tracker. Hopefully that answers that question, Lisa. But yeah, going back to this, that kind of helped to come back to where I was. I know that I've whistled through this already, but we've have limited time, and I want to get the information out there. The pattern for this: check the domain trust, check your profile, then go onto your keyword analysis as you normally would. But in your keyword analysis this time, in addition to looking at the Google search results, which is what we used to, when we would go in here and we would look at our keywords, we'd look at our competitors' keywords, we try and find patterns, keywords that have the right combination of difficulty, position, search volume, intent, SERP features, and so on. Maybe even some PPC information if we're looking at combining it with an SEM campaign, search engine marketing campaign. And we start to add these to our keyword manager lists. As part of that process, please go into the AI search tab. It's part of the same result. It's one level down on the nav, and in there you'll find all this extra detail. And it will start to show you some of the keywords that you're being found for AIO. If nothing appears just yet, then either your website doesn't currently have the volume or SEM ranking doesn't recognize the search terms yet. These tools are developing, the database behind them is developing, and just like with all things, you can submit keywords that SEM ranking doesn't have in its database to be indexed, and over time this database will just get better and better. If you have a reasonable volume of traffic, you will find that your AI search results will start to appear in here. And from there, you can identify the keywords that you like, pull those through into your keyword manager lists. But when we're operating our keyword manager lists, let's just tag them up. Let's just make sure that when we're adding in a keyword list and we're saying, okay, we want project management tools, we're going to add that in. Fantastic. Project management tools. We know it's in there, but we know it's an AI tool. Well, let's just tag it. So let's just make sure that we're adding in a tag, add a tag, call it AIO, give it a lovely color. There we go. And this is just going to help us manage which of our keywords might be more of a set priority, so that when we then go to handle these for our content plan, converting this into our content plan for content generation, we can start to work out which of these might be cornerstone keywords and might require that extra bit of effort or different structure or different approach due to the fact that they are AI-based keywords in addition to SEO or organic keywords. So hopefully that makes sense and that follows. As a final tip, I went through this last time, but when we're looking into the kind of the process of this and we're looking into how we want to utilize these keywords, I really do find it helpful to build up that keyword manager list as big as you can, expand your terms, expand your glossary. So although I've got 6 in this demo, if I was working with a normal sized client, I would expect anywhere from 300 to maybe 700 or 800 keywords by the time we are finished. It sounds like a lot for some of you, but once you have that many keywords, it's very easy to get there. Find a phrase, search for it in the keyword research tool, and then you'll find all the expansions, all the derivations, all the alternative ways of saying it, and then you keep going down that rabbit hole until you've fleshed out all the relevant keywords. Pull that into your first keyword manager list. From there, then start to refine it, start to reduce them. And for me, I normally end up with multiple keyword manager lists, my V1, my V2, my V3, etc. And each time I go through them, I start with the most possible options, and then I refine them down, until I'm left with a manageable size based on the content plan we want to achieve. But the whole way through, we need to be keeping our tags in place. If we have things that are either cornerstone content, branded content, essential content, the sales director says he must include these because that's what he wants, anything like that, or now AIO, let's make sure that we're including it in our tags, including it in the keyword manager list. And as we go from iteration to iteration, refining our process down, we want to keep that information going so that by the time we're ending up with the final result, that final keyword manager list, that's going to basically define our content plan for the next 12 to 36 months, 1 to 3 years. We're going to know which of these are going to be AI cornerstone content and also what the priority might be on that. So hopefully that is a very intense whistle-stop tour of kind of how we can get started into that. But before we sort of wrap up, does anyone have any questions or would like to go through anything in more detail? Just reading what SEO Ranking says. Okay, SEO Ranking has posted a little statement on there. Fab. So before we wrap up, does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask? If you do, please feel free to ask away. I want to make sure that the last 5 minutes are of my time or your time, effectively. Whilst you're having a think and having a chat, Rejoice, did that answer some of the questions that you had?
Yeah, of course. No, honestly, it's some of the questions that was coming up, I was like, yeah, that was what I was thinking. And I think is really cool how you sort of tied in how we can utilize the AI tool within SEO ranking and kind of complement traditional SEO, because I think that's what a lot of people are confused about. They think is a whole switch, but actually it's quite a complementary thing. So how you sort of delivered it was so insightful. So thank you so much.
That's all right. I do find it's an evolution, and it's a sort of a new adjacent arm, in the same way that when we're researching our search keywords and it just fits in with our pay-per-click or Google ad, research, this is part of that. And I have a feeling this isn't the end of it. We might end up with a single act of keyword research might end up funneling our search engine optimization, our search engine marketing, our AIO, and the next thing, whatever it is. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think even like now, how sort of Google is now sort of really slowly kind of feeding in the concept of social search. I really do feel that is going to now come into play because of just where the consumer journey now starts. And it's, Google has noticed it's not starting on the search engine as much as it did before. So that's pretty cool. We do have a question that just came in from Sea to Sky Consultants. Quite a really fun question, actually. What makes SEO Ranking's AI visibility tool unique from others?
Ooh, interesting. So I haven't used, full disclaimer, I haven't used some of the competitors with these tools recently. So best bet would be to have a little hands on and explore. But the one thing that I can tell you, we've been working with the SEO Ranking team, and they are so incredibly receptive to feedback, ideas and suggestions. It's the thing that actually made me kind of focus and end up working almost not solely, but very, very focused with SEO Ranking for the long term. They take on all feedback and ideas that we have. So when we're talking about things, you can see that all of these suggestions are built in. Years ago, they didn't have a keyword manager tool. It's something that we asked for multiple times, and then they built it. And not only did they build it, they started to add features that we've requested. Something that came up in a recent chat with one of their product team, we have an issue with tracking where things come from, especially now that we have more data protection issues or data protection laws. Good thing, bad for marketing, good for consumers. We now have less tracking. We have more things appearing as unspecified, not, etc. on Google. One of those is AI searches, because when you see those AI search results and you've got the link list, there's not necessarily any tracking information on those. And there's no industry standard at the moment for how those search engines or AI tools should present tracking information on the links. And this is something that I've kind of said to SEO Ranking is this something we can feed back to the industry?
Yeah.
And they're keen on it. So again, whether or not this tool is better than that other tool at this specific thing, have a play, see which one works for you. All I can say is, as a company to work with, they've been amazing in terms of receiving feedback. So the suggestions that you guys are making in the comments right now, genuinely, their product team will be seeing these later and putting them on the to-do list if any of them are really good ideas. So don't feel like you're lost voices here. Every question and suggestion is heard, which is what I love.
Yeah. And I think for me, I think one thing I do love about the AI visibility tool is I'm a huge API girly. I love how I need something to be seamless to sort of activate and to sort of utilize. And I do find with the AI visibility tool, it's easy to understand the data in terms of like just explaining what that data is, just kind of seeing it for exactly what it is. I think some other tools I've tested, it was quite finicky in a way. You don't know what this metric mean and how they've applied it. But I think with SE Ranking, it was so seamless to kind of get the bigger picture from it. Ruben has asked that in Backlink Checker, how do you cut through the noise, topical relevance, the link velocity, referring domain quality to build a copy and improve link plan that actually leapfrogs bigger rivals?
So this is a combination of, if you look for the, in fact, if I find it, if you look at the, where it is, the backlink gap analyzer, we can see the commonality. So if we can see straight away if there are common domains that we have in place, where we know some of our major competitors have certain domains that they are all sharing, that they are sort of emphasizing. That can be a key indicator that they're in these publications, they're in these websites. Beyond that, we can then start to look at the individual backlink profiles and start to rank and filter them. Now, for me, it just comes down to filters. You know, you building out filters based on the results that you're seeing. Sometimes you get high toxicity, sometimes you get a lot of faff. Sometimes you find that there are certain domain types you just want to exclude. So going through and working out what filters are going to work best to then cut it down. And then finally, within SEO ranking, there is the option to show one backlink per domain. It's a single checkbox, very useful, especially when you're sorting out the initial filters. Once you've found the websites that you then want to focus on, you can uncheck that to then see the rest of the results. But to begin with, showing one backlink per domain is a very easy way of filtering the signal versus the noise on that.
Amazing. Thank you for that. We have time for one more question, and this is from Joanne. How many keywords should we track in AIO Tracker? Does it depend on the company? Should they all be long tail?
It does depend on the company, and it depends on your resource, because fundamentally it's all going to come down to time. If we imagine that, you know, to create content that ranks well for normal SEO, we have the simple task of creating the best content that's ever existed, bar none. You know, to then make it also an AI result that then an AI tool will understand, it not only has to be the best result that anyone could see, it has to be the best result that anyone can see, that's also then structured and designed in such a way that it is easier for AI tools to interpret, which means that our language, our context, our semantics need to be slightly better. So the best result ever and semantically well built. That takes time. I would suggest that you treat AIO results and AIO keywords as priority keywords on par with sort of your cornerstone content. You select a handful of them, but you make that a percentage of your overall result. Not every keyword is going to be AI. We're going to have very specific search results, and they need to be high value. Ideally, that mid-tail search where you've got, they are questions, they are queries, they're more of a question than a normal short statement, but they're also high value with their volume, with their popularity, and you've got a chance of competing for it. You know, so a handful to begin with, expand it once you start to win.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. So just like everyone else, especially Lisa, myself, those in the comments, how can we connect with you, Ben?
Find me on LinkedIn. My name is Ben Fatwell, and there's only one of me, as far as I know. You know, it's a fairly odd name. Find me, connect with me, and if I have skipped over any other questions, if you do want to follow up, feel free to ask away on LinkedIn. I'll happily help as much as I can. You know, I am relatively busy, but I'll never turn down a good question.
Perfect. No, thank you so much, Ben. Honestly, thank you for that. Really, really appreciate it. We're going to sort of move on to the next speaker. But before we sort of get there, so just to sort of remind you guys that SEO Ranking and SEO Platform are for agency and in-house pros. You can scan the QR codes to try the expanded free trial. So it has everything from the AI search toolkit. You can do web audit, competitive research, backlink checker, as Ben has shown us. And plus you have access to over 30 other SEO tools. So it's absolutely there. And, you know, there is a chance to sort of utilize your personal email. So, you know, you don't want to miss out on that expanded trial. You can also sign up with your business email to get more out of your trial as well. And with the business email, you do get additional benefits there as well. So we're going to move on to the next speaker. You guys are stuck with me now. So I will be covering how to rank in AI overviews and organic search with topic first strategies. So, hi again, it's me. So, just to introduce myself, so I'm Rejoice Jackie. I am an SEO manager at Nelson Bostock, which is a B2B integrated PR comms agency, founder of BGC UK, and I am here today to deliver to you my walkthrough of the AI search tool with SE ranking, and we're going to focus purely on content, SEO content to be exact. So this will be a walkthrough. There are no slides. I'm going to take you through a demo of the actual tool within itself. So I will be sharing my screen with you guys, and we're going to have a conversation about SEO content, especially how it comes up within AI overviews. So we will move on to the research aspect within here. So you can always toggle at the side, research. You will go into the competitive research section, but what we want to look at is AI search. So we want to go into the AI search, and we're going to embed the our brand's domain. So we're going to embed Fenty Beauty. Again, you can choose a location, whether it's UK, US, or wherever your whatever market you want to sort of look at. And we can click analyze. So when we click analyze, we are now analyzing fentybeauty.co.uk to answer questions like, are we just being mentioned or are we being linked as well? Or what kind of traffic are we getting from AI citations? Which keywords and pages are sort of getting picked up? And we can see here that within sort of Fenty within the UK, they do have a good domain trust. They do have a good organic traffic. But within the AI search element, we can see here that they've been mentioned 539 times, and it shows you the percentage share, as well as comparing it month to month to see if your mentions are going up or going down, again, allowing you to better track it for reporting too. So Fenty appears in quite a lot of AI prompts. I mean, 97% of the share is almost nearly every AI prompt, and the link presence is 27. So only 4% of those mentioned are sort of linked. So the average position here is 9.5. So slipping slightly, slightly within August, but the AI traffic is up from 14, where it was 13 last period. So again, very, very good for reporting. But I want you to also make notes here that we're looking into AI overviews. What I really enjoy about this is that we can sort of toggle between the different LLM models we want to check. AI overviews, AI mode, ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity. I do believe Gemini and Perplexity are going to be sort of, the full scope will be launched later on. But again, you have that option to check different LLMs. So we're not limited to just AI overviews. I would say from a content perspective and to form topical authority, it's very good to check a breadth of LLM models just to see if there's one, consistency, and two, which LLM model does mention your brand specifically a lot versus the other. And then you can sort of think about how we can streamline the content to make sure that it is applicable for all of those models in general. But let's continue with a deep dive. In the last session, of course, Ben went through in terms of the traffic, where you can see the organic traffic as it falls and where the traffic from AIO picks up. So we can see here that organic has gone down, but the AIO traffic, the estimated traffic, has gone up, and we can see how it sort of fluctuates. So this is a classic SEO insight. You can be visible, but if you're not linked, you're not getting clicks. So that's the rule of thumb that you should sort of have. If we look at the link presence dynamics here, we can track and we can see a spike in link presence between March and June. And we can also see a rise in AI traffic around July and August. This could correlate to a few things, and it allows you to kind of think about the wider aspects of your strategy in terms of what's happening within the industry, maybe what's happening within the company. So this could be a few things. If you're e-commerce, it can be you might have had new product pages. You might either have seasonal content being picked up by AI summaries, or you might have structured content that is easier for AI models to parse or cite. So again, there's so many variations that you can do and allow you to sort of investigate. But let's look at the keyword level insights, which is down here. So the beauty of it within AI search is, again, as Ben said before, it shows us these keywords. So it shows the keyword, search volume, traffic, and type. So let's take the first example. blotting is the keyword. We can see it has 880 search volume. And then Fenty, we can see here, Fenty is not just mentioned, but they are linked within the snippets. So again, meaning that from this keyword within AI search, that it is following through and providing a link, again, providing that traffic into Fenty Beauty's website. As we said earlier, it's great to be mentioned, but we want to have that extra boost. And to have that, we want to be linked as well. But we can also see other websites that are being linked for this keyword. So we can see there's a site called Watercolor Painting. There is a Collins Dictionary that gives us a definition of blotting, a Wikipedia page, and an Amazon page that drives to a product link as well as a YouTube link within that. So again, this is a very key thing for us in terms of our top linking keywords, and you can go down and sort of look at these keywords. A strategy here to utilize is you can sort of take these keywords and go and compare it to your organic search and see when you type in blotting, or when you sort of type in looking at your GSC to see if blotting is part of a keyword that comes up for your brand, where do you sort of rank within traditional search engine? Again, looking at the difference. If you're doing really well on organic search, that's great. But if you're not doing so well on AI search, you might want to think about, okay, how do we re-optimize existing content, or do we need to create new content? Do we need to optimize products pages, and so on? But if we look here in terms of the richest singer, now this has nothing to do with the product in itself that Fenty sells, but this has everything to do with the brand owner. So sometimes certain brands, or certain, if you're looking at from a personal branding perspective, certain brands are attached to a particular person. Fenty Beauty is owned by Rihanna. So again, the richest singer makes sense for this for Fenty, because who the actual founder is. But unfortunately, the traffic is zero, because I doubt that there are any clicks that lead back to Fenty, which I am right here. There are no clicks that lead back to Fenty's website. But it's very interesting that, this keyword is a great way to show the snippet. Again, you might think about this in terms of a content. Should we create an about us within our site to make sure we have that topical links is linking back to whether our founders linked in? This can work quite well from a B2B perspective. If you have like a executive biography page that you want to make sure comes up within AI search and links through, you might consider adding a link within those biography pages that will aid citation, that will aid those backlinks. So all in all, why does this section matter when we're thinking about creating topical first content strategies? Well, it matters because this gives us real performance metrics. It answers what is working. It answers what content is AI friendly. It makes you think about, am I creating these AI content friendly pieces or landing pages that gets picked up within AI search? And it also allows you to answer, what are we leaving, where are we leaving traffic on the table? So from here, you can audit in terms of prompts where you were mentioned. You can audit pages that are linked or not, and you can audit topics that drive AI traffic. So another thing, stage after this, so once you sort of notify these are the prompts, these are also how we're performing, we want to then take this and look at how do we build clusters? How do we make sure that from the prompts that we saw in terms of makeup and being mentioned, and those prompts that we might use to create content, but how about creating existing content, fresh content that allows us to kind of think about what users want, and how do I quickly cluster those? How do I create this top hierarchy topic clusters from utilizing this AI visibility? So it's now time to build that content clusters that captures future visibility, and we're doing that utilizing data-backed strategies. So we can see where we are sort of coming from, but you might have a mind block, a creative block in terms of how can I actually group this? How can I push forward to write new content, or maybe re-optimize a content that we already have on the site? And this is where I like to combine SE Rankings, AI search, AI visibility research with SE Rankings content idea finder. So you could have exported all of those prompts and exported all of your keywords and then upload it into SE Rankings content finder, which you will find underneath the content marketing tab. And then you will go into the content idea finder tab. So here, this tool helps us take a seed topic. Now, we know, for example, utilizing Fenty is all about makeup, but again, when we're thinking about content, we think about it in different categories. So we think about seasonal content, evergreen content. But if we take seasonal content, especially from an e-commerce site, sometimes you may see content traffic either go up or down depending on seasons. This is what I noticed when I was looking after OPI, the nail brand, as a client. We saw that certain colors of nail varnish were fluctuating throughout the year. So from September all the way down to November roughly, we saw that black nail varnish skyrocketed. And we again thought, okay, that's a concept of Halloween. So we may need to now create content that feeds into that keyword that allows us to use black nail varnish as a keyword or Halloween nails as a keyword. And you can sort of do this with seasonal content. So that's what I've gone ahead and done. I've thought about Fenty Beauty as a product, as a brand, and thought about seasonal content around Christmas because Christmas is coming up. So think about the idea of gift sets. So I have loaded at least 50 different keywords within the content finder. And this created the makeup gift sets clusters. So let's think about it. So let's create a holiday campaign for Fenty, right? We want to create a holiday campaign for Fenty, making sure that we create content that we know, looking at those prompts, we know that could fit into the answers for those prompts, and it can help us create the content that we want. So when we sort of input that, we can see all of the different clusters that is given to us. So you have the clusters, which is here that I created, but you also have the clusters ideas. So this sort of tells us how many we have within each clusters. So the first one, bag YSL, has at least 10 clusters. It has a search volume and difficulty. And again, you can copy this or export it to sort of add to your keyword clusters bank that will help you build on this topical idea. So looking at this, it tells us quite a lot of things. To make it more specific, it also, if we look at beauty gift sets, for example, again, these are the keywords it said that came underneath this clusters. So we can see Charlotte Tilbury, again, a competitor brand. That will tell you that people are searching by brand name, but what we do want is non-branded terms. So once we sort of take this, the data is telling us what users are searching for, what subtopics we can build content around, and where that search demand meets intent. So how does this tie back to AI? So if we take one of the prompts within AI prompt that says, what are the best gift sets for makeup lovers? That can be, that's an AI prompts that was within the 194. So we can go into here, utilizing, knowing that that prompt was there. And if you weren't mentioned, now you are able to create content that will be authoritative in order to target that prompt. So if we look at beauty gift sets, for example, or if we look at, let's just go back to beauty gift sets. One thing I like would be, it also tells you the different titles here that sort of come up for other competitors. So, and looking at, again, the meta titles that they're using, so how they're calling it out, giving you an idea. You can see some use the term premium. That can be, that's a search term as well. Like we said, seasonal ideas, Christmas beauty gifts, and and we have the different ones here. But another great thing about this is the mind map section. Now, this is my favorite one because it gives you a very clear picture in terms of how we can sort of do this, in terms of, okay, it tells me the total volume of this particular keyword within this sort of cluster. It tells me that the total keyword is 3.9. So what you can notice is some are blue and some are red. And this is just to signify the ones that are red have a very high total search volume. So if we go in through, we can see gift box set has 15,000 search volume total. gift set for women 70, beauty set, which is blue, 9.3. So it's looking at keywords that are less than 10,000 total search volumes will be blue. Keywords are more than 10,000 total search volumes will be red. So it allows you to kind of prioritize that too. So let's actually now create this campaign. So we'll take one of the clusters, and how can we utilize this and create those content assets? We can create the assets from a landing page perspective. So an example headline can be holiday makeup sets from Fenty. If we want to look at it from a blog article perspective, top 10 beauty gifts for her in 2025. So these are feeding into the type of things your users might actually search for. And then once we're creating that content, we are allowing for the AI prompts to be answered. You can also create comparison posts just utilizing these clusters, and that can be Fenty versus Rare Beauty, because again, we are seeing the titles here. So we know the competitors that are also coming up within these clusters. So, utilizing one of our competitor brands, we can either create content for that targets either fragrance shop, if you are a fragrance company, and so on, or you can create gift guide content assets. So makeup gifts for teens, moms, and everywhere in between can be an example headline for you. So we want to use the search volumes that we are seeing at the side here and the difficulty score to prioritize the clusters. That gives you the best shot at both ranking organically and earning AI citations. So this acts as a final step within the system. So you found the prompts, you've audited the performance of the brand within AI and how it's coming up in terms of visibility. And you're using that to build clusters based on those keywords where you are seeing your brands being mentioned within AI, within the AI search, and you want to build keywords around that and build your keyword clusters. And then you turn that into AI optimized content. But another amazing thing about SEO ranking is you might not have to do that by yourself. You can have existing content, or you can create content, new content. And one of the beauty is once you sort of have these keywords, you can go into content editor, which is at the top, again, content marketing, and you'll find it within that tab. The amazing thing about the content editor, again, we want to streamline all of these tools because we did say SEO ranking has over 30 plus SEO tools. So you can do everything that you want to do within this one platform. So once you sort of have your keywords, the topics you want to write, and you're just stuck in how to write it. So the content editor looks at how to help you write high quality content, from creating content briefs, which is what I do a lot of the time. Is we work with copywriters, but the content brief is what will inform how well that content does, because we can input the meta title, the keywords, we can input the prompts we're trying to target, we can input the internal links we want to have within that, within the brief. And again, it will help you analyze your top 10 competitors and gain, insights into word count, headings, and so on. So again, it's keeping the basic principles of what Google loves when looking at content and how content should read and how users will interpret that content in order to answer their queries. So you can either start a new brief, or you can either create an optimizing, have like an existing content you want to do. So I haven't sort of given an example here, but this is just to show how we can create an entire workflow starting from the AI visibility research all the way down to actually writing that content, uploading it, and then you can go back, set up an account within this to track performance and to see how that content is sort of performing. So all of this ties in together because we are no longer in a world where traditional SEO is enough. Now we need to be the source AI pulls from, not just someone who ranks on the page, or not just a brand that ranks on the page, but for us to succeed in terms of utilizing AI visibility to inform our content, especially with the data that's been given, we are now going to be topically focused. Because now we know where we're being mentioned. Now we know what keywords are coming up for those mentions. And now we know what other brands are coming up within those lists and those citations for us to do in-depth research in the type of content that they sort of write in. And it's not about reinventing the wheel. is about looking at the strategies other competitors are using to see what works for us. And now we have the capabilities to make sure that we are being specific and quite meticulous in how we're using AI to sort of do so. And now we have that visibility to see where those mentions are. So now that we have that, we are now able to align with AI prompt formats. We now know the prompts, so there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to create new content or develop existing content based on those prompts. And now we're able to be structured for extractions. So think clean answers, think semantic clarity, and track actual link presence and AI traffic, because now we're able to see if, by creating these new content, whether we are increasing our AI traffic, we're increasing those mentions. So with the SE ranking suite of AI tools that we now have everything we need to sort of do just that. We can now discover what AI is asking. We can now track our brand performance. We can build those clusters. So this is how you build a closed loop AI first SEO system, because it's not necessarily AI does not sit within the silo, and you can now even utilize this for other channels like social search or PR. And that can sort of complement it in terms of where citations are coming from. And these are ways to kind of embed and create an ecosystem, a marketing ecosystem that puts AI search, SEO, or AIO in the center, that sort of lets us, do the work the best way that we can. So I'm going to sort of go through the comments and ask you and read out the content and read out the comments that you guys are sort of asking. The first question we have is from Alex. How do you match topics to intent through the customer journey and keep that up to date when AIOs shrink or reroute queries? So this is a very good question. So topics and intent, I love sort of looking at the buyer's journey. So if you look at the consumer's journey from awareness all the way to decision, there is a system that I tend to sort of utilize with that. So with the intent that we have, informational, navigational, transactional, and commercial. So based on your actual brand, a lot of times when it comes to e-commerce, a lot of times when it comes to some B2B, a lot of queries stay within informational because people want to find things very, very quickly. People just want to know more information. But I think with AI search, we now have to incorporate navigational because of those citations, because we want to actually drive it. So if we kind of link them up in a way where for the awareness stage, if you think about it from, that's when people want to discover information and find that out. So what you can match is looking at the topics within the SE ranking tool. So if we go back to the shared screen and let's take it back to the AI search. So let's take it back here, for example. So some of the prompts that we have, for example, if we go into blotting here, so it tells us for this particular search term, once you sort of click into it, it will tell you the difficulties 15 search volume. But if you sort of scroll down, you will see here the AI overviews. A lot of the content that comes up and you read it, you will notice that the content being created are informational content. So you're able to match certain keywords based on what type of content comes up within the AI answers. What are the brands? What are their content saying? And you can sort of match it with that. When it comes to adding citations, I think you need to look at your goals. Do you just want to be mentioned, or do you also want to drive links? If you want to drive links, which now makes that query both informational and navigational, you want to make sure that within the content you're creating, are you including CTAs in the content that you have? Are you actually breaking down and structuring the content that makes it easy to follow for AI to think, yes, this is a well-structured semantic topical content, we're going to sort of include a link. So when you're sort of mapping out your keywords to search intent and consumer journey, you might want to create like a roadmap and kind of map out all of the consumer journeys, and then sort of create like a kind of blot around where those keywords will sit. So anything that's awareness will be informational. Once people get into the consideration stage, we might be navigational intent keywords, it might still be informational, but once we move into decision, we're now going into more transactional keywords. So think about modifiers. If you see keywords that have, download or buy or discount, you already know the consumer is thinking of buying. If we think about awareness and informational, you will see those modifiers: what, how, when, why. Those will then tell you those topics are based around informational, based around finding out answers to a particular question or wanting to dig deeper to find more content around that. The next question is from Steven. Steven says, for repurposing content to fill cluster gaps like FAQ steps, comparisons, what's your go-to method that keeps entities consistent and avoids keyword cannibalization? Kind of my pain point. I totally empathize with you on that, Stephen. It is a massive pain point for a lot of people, because sometimes it kind of becomes quite repetitive and you are unsure about how to navigate keyword research or repurpose content. But what I like to do and think about is repurposing content to fill cluster gaps. Your cluster gaps should not try to answer only an overarching question. The issue a lot of marketers tend to have is that they stay within that overarch. They do not drill it down. So cluster gaps are meant to fill out the gaps within it. So think about different angles. Sometimes certain questions might be asked, but the angle in which it's answered might be different. So if we think about makeup gift sets, for example, that's an overarching keyword or overarching topic. You might already have content that talks about makeup gift sets, but have you considered maybe looking at it from a seasonal perspective, adding a modifier, makeup gift sets for birthdays, makeup gift sets for Mother's Day? So now you're creating new content that's not cannibalizing, because you're now looking at maybe Mother's Day queries alongside makeup gift sets, or you're now looking at Christmas queries alongside makeup gift sets. And that way you are now filling out gaps. One, the gap is seasonal, or two, the gaps may be surrounded around maybe new product launches, or surrounded about maybe new business initiations that's all come into play. So you want to think beyond that overarching topic, and that's how you can sort of fill out the gaps without cannibalizing the keywords, because now you can streamline different keywords based on that niche category that you have kind of drilled down into. So Bernard has asked, in your content brief, which elements most often help win both AIO mentions and SERP improvements? Things like questions, task flows, definition, schema, at any scale wins you can share. So one thing I love to include in the content briefs, I've always said, content briefs, just because it's called a content brief, it doesn't need to be brief. It doesn't need to be brief. It needs to be as detailed as possible, because when you're working with the copywriters within the content team or within the company, they are there to write creatively. You are the expert. You have to feed that data. So within the content briefs, I always break it down. I have a table in the first brief. I have the objective of what this content is supposed to do. So you need to give an in-depth analysis of the content is meant to, we want the content to answer this query, or the objective is to promote a new product, is meant to answer X amount of questions. You want to include the intent that they need to write from. And sometimes you might have to define what that intent is. So I'll always say in the content briefs, this content is an informational content. So therefore the word count will be much larger. You include any internal linkings that you think will drive traffic. So go into your Google Search Console, go into your GA, see what other pages that are relevant to the content that you want to write, that you can now internally link to make sure traffic is shared, or to make sure it signals Google that these content are linked. This is giving the user extra information. You definitely want to have your keywords there. So your primary keyword that you're trying to target, and your secondary keywords. Secondary keywords should be around maybe 3 or 4, not too much. add in the word count you think is ideal. When I was working with a client called the Watch Shop, all the content briefs I had created, I had broken it down from the H1s to the H2s to H3s in terms of the idea that what we should be talking about. And what I did was I also linked competitor articles that are doing what I'm trying to do very well, that are outranking us in this area, that are doing better in their content. And I always link them to give the copywriter a visual representation of where I'm trying to go in order to structure this, where I think those internal links should be fitted in which section within that brief. It has to be as detailed because, again, you are providing that SEO expertise, and now that we have AI into it, include the prompts that we're not ranking for. So like we saw, the prompts that has 0 mentions, I want to include the prompts that I want that this content is meant to serve, and we're trying to push in order to come up for those mentions. So I hope that answers your question, Bernard. Thank you so much for asking that. The next question is from Redback. Does using AI to write articles and blogs impact rankings? It's usually pretty clear AI is used, even if you modify content to remove indicators. This is a very funny one. Thank you so much, Redback, for that, because I have been struggling in terms of when people sort of have these modifiers that AI picks up, and I just think, it's just grammar. But I do agree that utilizing AI to write blogs is not a bad thing. What is the issue is the input that we're giving AI. We're not giving AI enough input in order to get the best output. A lot of times people just say, here are the keywords, write me a blog about, the topic, utilizing the keywords. That's not enough. AI can only give you exactly what you tell it to. So when you are feeding it this content, again, when you're feeding AI this content, feed it like a content brief. Actually create a content brief and upload it to the AI platform. Now with ChatGPT, with Perplexity, with Claude, you can actually attach files. I will go in and attach a full fleshed out content brief that has everything I need. And in that content brief, it's okay to write tone of voice. Because the brand has a tone of voice, you can absolutely embed that into it. Now that we have concepts like agentic AI, where we can create agents that match certain tone of voice, be it in formal, if you have a brand guideline, embed that in, and then give it the prompt, and then say, utilizing the attached documents, write an SEO or write a blog that has SEO in mind. You can even feed it the principles that you want, that follows the Google guideline. Feed it the EEAT. Are you trying to target expertise, authority, trustworthiness? And sometimes when it gives you the output, read it through. Whatever you don't like, then go back in and say, change it. And you might have to do that a few tries before you get to the final best results. So it's not that it is bad. It's just that it's not that the AI thing, using AI to write blogs is bad. It's just that our prompts are bad. We're not actually feeding it very detailed prompts that we should to get the best output that we sort of have. Is there I don't think there's any more questions. I'm just looking through. If you have any more questions, please ask. But you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Rejoice with Jaku. I am there. You can send in your questions to me there, and I'll be able to answer it there. So that's it for me, and I do hope you guys have enjoyed that. But we are going to move on to the next speaker. But before we get there, do you guys know about our AI course, AI for SEO course? You get to learn from amazing industry expertise, like experts on how to integrate AI into content creation, how to do prompt engineering, how to sort of stay aligned with Google's EAT guidelines, because that is exactly what AI uses, especially the authority and trustworthiness aspects of EAT. So please scan that QR code and join our AI SEO course, and it will allow you to kind of supercharge that SEO strategy and understand how can you stay ahead within this AI universe that we are now in. So we're going to go to the next speaker, and we have Matt Bailey with us, and Matt is going to talk about how to outsmart Google's AI shifts. Do you guys think we can outsmart it? But Matt is going to tell us exactly how to do it, how to see every ranking jump from keyword to AI overview utilizing SE ranking. Hi, Matt.
Hello, Rejoice. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. The sun is out, but it's still cold, but I am doing very well. Thank you. How are you?
Doing great. That was a great session. Really appreciated the info you put there. Enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. But before you get into your slides, Matt, please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are. I see you're the founder of Site Logic, but we'd love to know more about your background.
All right. Thanks, Rejoice. So I started building websites around 1994, 95 in the real estate industry. And all of a sudden realized I could get to the top of search engines. And it was because I was a journalism major. I designed websites like I learned how to lay out newspapers with headings, subheadings, all that kind of stuff. And it worked. So, and then from there, you just pick up skills, analytics, paid search, usability, conversion optimization. You just pick it all up as you go. So yeah, I've been in this industry since almost day one. And now, you know, and that's really what I'm going to go into in my talk is kind of like we're back in the early 2000s because everything's changing every day. It's exciting. I love it. What a great industry.
Amazing. Now, that sounds really, really good, Matt. Thank you so much. I would hand it over to you to kind of teach us how to kind of trick AI and shift it. Looking forward to it.
All right. Let me pop my screen on here. And all right. So yeah, what we're going to look at here is the ranking jumps between SEO and AI. I'm also going to talk to you about a client I took on who was having some trouble, and I was working with them in the middle of this AI overview shift. And just crazy stuff is happening. But let me just, Rejoice asked me to introduce myself. So yeah, I've been in this industry for like ever. I have worked with an incredible amount of companies. I've done training at a number of companies. Now I do a lot of teaching and training. I don't take on a lot of clients, but I take on the ones that have a good story. And this was one of them. But here's how I'm going to approach this talk: that what's old is new and what's new is old. And I say that because of what I mentioned earlier, that it is just like being in the early 2000s. Right now, there is so much happening with AI overviews and trying to figure out, well, how's it going to show up in AI? How do I increase my visibility in AI? But I also want to keep my rankings. And so there's all this information swirling around. I've got to tell you, it's just like it was in the early 2000s, because back then we had 5 search engines or more that we were trying to track rankings across. Google wasn't dominant at that point, but it was becoming dominant. And so you're trying to figure out how to rank in Alta Vista, in Yahoo, in Ask Jeeves, in Google. And you're trying to play all these off each other, but also learning, how do I do this? What's working? The key here that I would say back in the early 2000s, the key to learning and applying information was community. Back in the early 2000s, the vast majority of SEOs were on forums and sharing information that this is what I've been doing, this is what I'm seeing. They were sharing screenshots, debating. There was a full-on community that would debate and evaluate, and you could get feedback from on what you were doing. And so a lot of shared information helped people get through that. Now, I will say right now, what we have is better tools. Back in the early 2000s, it was Excel spreadsheets. It was basic analytics. You were just trying to work your way through. And by the way, most of your rank checking services were illegal or not sanctioned by Google. And so you had a very limited amount of information, but now we have fantastic tools like SE ranking. Now, one of the things I learned in those early days is sometimes a lot of information is shared and it becomes assumed. And back around 2008, there was a lot of assumed information about something called Google's sandbox. And what the sandbox was is new websites were supposedly put into sandbox and they weren't allowed to rank until they essentially kind of proved themselves, whether it was through links or getting visits, something like that. That was the concept of the sandbox. And a lot of SEOs were promoting this idea that new websites just aren't going to perform well because Google puts these sites into the sandbox. In my agency, one of the things I had every employee do was build a website. And then once they built that website, they had to make money with it. That was the second thing they had to do. I had an employee and she was in the equestrian industry. She rode horses. She taught people how to ride horses. She competed. And so, of course, she built a website about horses and about equestrian events. And what happened in 2008, she built her website, and about 6 months later, which is this ideal sandbox time, the Beijing Olympics, the Summer Olympics came on, and she was looking to see when the equestrian events were going to be televised in our country, and they were nowhere to be found. So she contacted the Olympic Committee. She made call after call after call to find out when will the equestrian events be televised. She finally found someone. They gave her the answer, and she took that information and put that on her website. Within days, her traffic starts to increase, and we're about 3 months away from the Olympics at this point. And you could just see the amount of traffic increase over time. Her rankings increased. And we're looking at this thinking, all this information about the sandbox, this is blowing it to pieces. By the time the Olympics came around, now her site has only been live for about 9 months at this point. She's averaging 20,000 visitors a day. And she's monetizing with ads on her site. So it was fantastic. But what this taught us, if you have information that people need, you will be found. And that's the bottom line when it comes to search and AI. If you have the information, if you are the authority and you have the content people want and need, and you've got it all, they will find you. Because it's in the search engine's best interest to give people the content that they want. So regardless of the age of the website, this threw the sandbox theory out. It was about information. It was about, are you giving people unique information, and are you the source of that? Now, I want to talk to you about this client that we took on. They had a story, and you know the story. They've been through 10 companies, lots of promises, lots of activity, no results. So we took them on and we started optimizing for them. We got, more than 200 terms. You can see here, went from almost nothing to getting into multiple rankings, getting into the first page. We're excited. This is happening early spring this year. This is probably about March, April, May. We're starting to see the rankings go up. We're starting to see traffic go up. And then all of a sudden, Google AI Overviews enters the room. And as you can see here, and this is right out of their search console, you can see the impressions in purple going up and the clicks in blue going down, which was exactly the opposite of what the industry does every year. Clicks should be going up. It's a trending content, and it's a trending site. Summer is always their biggest season, and that's when most people are searching for their products. But instead, we saw a tail off on our keywords and on our clicks, but the impressions were going up. Getting into our rankings here to find out what's going on. And for the primary keywords, going for those, we've got first page rankings. We've got rankings in the top 10. We've got a few but what happened is the AI overview. And so for the terms that we were going after here, and these were going to be the focus terms for the first phase, and then we were going to grow from there. But all of a sudden, what we're seeing is the terms that were bringing in visits all of a sudden stopped. Why? Because of the AI overview. Look at this AI overview page. It's like 3 scrolls long. I don't care if you rank number 1 or number 2. No one's going to look for you because everything is here. Google AI Overview took all the information from all the ranking sites and loaded it into this. Essentially, what Google created was a landing page. And we've got citations through here. So now we've got to reassess. What are we doing now? Because all these great rankings are essentially useless. No one's clicking through. So we went through and what we started to do was look at what terms are not triggering AI overviews. And what's interesting is when we started getting into some short tail terms, what we saw, so for a couple of these large short tail terms, check it out. We have images. The images are coming from blogs. They're coming from Pinterest. They're coming from articles. Then we have more articles. Then we have Reddit. There's Pinterest. Videos. And the videos are coming from TikTok. They're coming from YouTube. They're coming from Facebook. And then actually we get into some e-commerce stuff here. And then even further below that, more articles. So what it showed us is, there are some areas. And so now we're readjusting strategy in order. And what it's forcing us to do for this specific client is to go further up the funnel. We're trying to get more into informational, but also finding those informational searches where we're not competing against Google's AI. Because at this point, people at that top of the funnel, they're searching informationally. They're at the very beginning of the cycle. It wouldn't make sense for Google to give an AI overview at this point because what people want to see are pictures, videos, lists. That's what people want to see there. And so finding those areas where we can readjust off of that and pivot into there's no competition from Google. It's going to take a while, but we're going to go after some of the big terms. Now, also what it showed us too is how to pivot with the AI. I showed you that big, long page of Google's AI overview, as well as you could see, let me jump back into there, there's citations all over it, all kinds of citations here. And so that's where we want to be found. And so using SE ranking, we were getting into some of the words. Where are we showing up? I love this to find out the organic to AI overlap. That is looking at your organic results and how many of those organic results are also showing up in AI citations. So this can give you a good sense of who you're competing against and how many sites. And also what we were able to do in readjusting the content, readjusting how we were presenting content and applying that. You can see we increased our link visibility from 15 up to 5. And so that's now where we can start looking at how some of this will work. Now, here's the issue with some of this. And you can see here, we've got a lot of similar type of words. The problem with some of this is that you can ask AI the same question, maybe an hour later, maybe a day later, and you'll get different information. I see this all the time. I especially see it with my college students. They think that they can just type it in and, sometimes that they'll get the same information, but depending upon, and Rejoice did a great job talking about how you prompt. And if you're using just general prompts, general questions, the results are going to change. So while I like this as a kind of an overview, kind of a look, today it's alternative to wood deck. Today, and tomorrow it might be substitute. It depends on how the prompt is formed, and that could affect your visibility. It could also affect just based on numerous other factors, but just giving a sense of, hey, I'm showing up. I could be very happy about that. But also looking at SE rankings, we're doing the beta on SC Visible, and this is the visibility in AI, which I absolutely love. So now I can look with specific prompts in the industry. What are people looking for? Where's the visibility and where's the average position and the competitors? It's exactly what Rejoice was talking about, is go look at the competitors, that they look at their visibility. What are they doing? And so we can incorporate that as well. So this is going to be a fun product to help enhance what you're looking for in AI, what your visibility is, who you're competing against for very specific prompts that people are searching for. Now, what do we do? How do we respond to this? And by this, here's the best advice I can give you. And like I said, today reminds me of the early 2000s. So what happened from there to here? If you look at the past, it'll help you predict the future. Here's what I mean. In my university courses, I make students do some research all the Google algorithm changes and tell me who got hurt and who was rewarded. And very simply explain these things. And so we can look at the evolution of search and algorithm technology. And so here's what I want to present to you, and stop me if this sounds familiar. So back in 2011, Google Panda, maybe some of you remember that. What did we learn from Google Panda? Build original, comprehensive, user-first content. Does that sound familiar? In 2012, Penguin, that taught us earn editorial and relevant backlinks, avoid the link schemes. Okay, so now that focuses us on PR. It focuses us on developing relationships with other higher authority websites to get citations back to our site. 2013, Google Hummingbird, and this is the one, and this was probably one of the first major algorithms to focus on content. And what did it focus on? Content that answers questions rather than matching keywords. This is hilarious because I see this quote, this finding, build content that answers search your questions rather than matching keywords. I'm seeing this headline articles that were written yesterday, that were written last month. It's like, we've known this since 2013. This is what we learned from Hummingbird. So, and this is what we learned. And so this should have been preparing us for what's going to happen. Rather than just matching keywords, look at, this is what came out of Hummingbird. Evaluate pages for answers, not just facts. So going beyond that keyword match and giving a comprehensive topical overview of your content, synonyms, natural content that reads conversationally, conversational queries. That's exactly what we're dealing with ChatGPT, with Claude, with Google AI Overview. This is where it started to really come in. And what we learned from Hummingbird, still relevant, and that's still part of the advice you're getting today. RankBrain 2015. What did we learn? Google is going to reward topical depth and relevance. None of this is new. This has all been coming at us over the past 25 years. Google BERT. This was AI language analysis. What did it reward? It rewards writing for humans and using contextual relevance. So when you're building your pages, you're building out your topics, you're associating them, you're linking them together to build that topical authority in great, well-written content that drives people to a result. So, and this is what we've dealt with just in the past couple of years with the helpful content. What are we learning from the helpful content update? Original, insightful, authoritative content, real expertise, unique value, and intent satisfaction. Now that right there means a whole lot. Intent satisfaction. That means I got my answer and more. How do you give more than just the answer? How do you make someone how do you give them the answer to what they're searching for and give them that satisfaction? Well, here's a couple of things. And what I have done is I'm not calling it SEO. I'm not calling it GEO. I'm not calling it is persuasive content development. This is what we're doing. Create content. And here's what you do. Number one, understand the intent of your searcher. And by that, I mean, if you never talk to your customer, you will never understand their intent. Get out from your computer, make a phone call, visit with them, do one-on-one talking with your customers to learn how you solve their problem. Learn how they perceive you. Learn what would they do if they didn't have your product or your company. Understand their intent. What made them search? And then how did they find you? These are things that can only be found through research for interaction with your customers. The better you understand your customer, the better you will understand intent. You'll never get it from just staring at a screen and using search tools. You have to talk to your customers because now you'll understand the questions that they have. You'll understand those questions at a much deeper level. You will be able to have more topical dominance because you're getting your data from actual humans. And then when they come to the page, and this is how you get intent satisfaction, how will you engage their attention? You can engage their attention with videos, with downloads, with quizzes, with interactive elements like calculators, things that cause people to stay on the page longer, to click around, to investigate. This is where you're engaging their attention. And there's a great question about, how do I move them through that buying cycle? You can get them on the top of the funnel. You can get them at that information search if they come to your site. But then also what you're doing is directing progression in that customer journey from just getting the basic information to, oh, there's something I can download. Hey, great, a video, a time-lapse video that shows how it works. Very quick bites that help them decide and directs progression, call to action, to a form, to any lead generation device that you've got on there. But you just can't serve up the content without a context of where to go and what you want them to do. Content-wise, AI is going to look at chunks of your page. SEO is going to look at the entire page. So think about that as you design your page. You build a page with topical expertise, but you're also breaking the content up into subheadings. This is basic SEO. And as I said, I came out of journalism. This is how content is built. Headings, subheadings, bullet points, breaking content up into easy to scan and read pathways for people to get through the page. And then also any authoritative references. If you're citing studies, research, quotes, facts, cite it, because that helps show that you're not just making this stuff up. You're also closing the loop by linking to people who you should link to. That has to show up as well. Now, just to give you a look at, even I took my own medicine, all right? I redid my entire website, which hasn't been done in 10 years, because now with AI and also with SEO, it's how do you balance these two? And so just an example of how, you chunk the information into very specific things. You've got your headings, but then also short paragraphs, easily scannable information. So I've got, your benefit statements here, but then also getting into who are perfect students, and everything is its own encapsulated information, but it's part of a greater whole. And so when you're developing these pages, easily scanned, easily structured, understandable, how can people find the answer to their question? You'll notice I'm doing a lot more question and answer as I develop these pages. Now, the cool thing is I saw rankings increase. So for this course, for this OMCA, it's a digital marketing certification, and my rankings have gone up significantly from redesigning and redeveloping the site. Not only that, finally, I love seeing that, 40. So if anyone is looking for information on Reddit about the certification, it went from 41 to 40. I love that. This is what makes an SEO heart warm, is seeing those increased rankings. But now also getting into the AI overviews, the difference between before the launch and after the launch, seeing that visibility show up. So now you can develop your content for both SEO and AI overviews, because a lot of these things are based on what we've learned in the past, and it's how it's applied today. And so I love that, with the SE ranking, we can track these things, we can look at the overlap, and it gives you a sense of where to focus in order to increase your visibility in those AI overviews. And then also, just to give you a sense, also the SE visible here as well. Hope that comes public soon, but protect your brand. And that's what I love about the SE visible product here, is it enables you to look and see if people are searching based on your brand name, what's your visibility? Where's your position? What's the sentiment? And so fantastic way to protect your brand and see, is it positive in the AI overviews? Who are you competing against? What's your position? So it gives you very specific areas that if you want to increase, if you want to develop something from here, great thing I saw is, probably, my lowest one here is uniqueness, as well as success stories. Gives me great ideas for additional content to boost that position, but also it's additional topic support that you may not have thought of, may not have developed from there. So here is the summary. If you're going to optimize for both SEO and AI results, research your topics. And remember what I said, talk to your customers. They're the best source of information. Focus on intent and providing comprehensive answers. Design your pages in subtopical chunks. Remember, SEO is going to look at the entire page. AI is going to look at a chunk. So make sure that you have independent chunks of information in context with the overall theme and topic that you're writing on. Cite all of your information, but keep the visitor on the page as long as possible. Downloads, videos, CTAs, anything like that, and also that progression path. Where do you want them to go after that informational view? Do you have things that will move them to that next stage and continue inviting them to take that next step? And then also all of this is learned, and you've probably heard this, go beyond the rankings. Don't just focus on AI overviews. Don't just focus on rankings. Now's the time to develop a lot of other channels that maybe you've not been developing before. I and many others have been hammering the email lists, and that has been right now probably one of the better sources of engaging existing customers for repeat business, for ongoing. And so it's building and developing better email structures, better email communications, and getting that inquiring, because here's the thing. It's direct. It's my audience. It's my email. So everything I do in email is a direct communication. So many other things are indirect. So anything you can do to build your own audience and develop it from there. I'm amazed at how many companies right now, in order to get a discount, you have to give both your email and your phone number in order to get the discount. And so now I get SMS texts all the time from brands. My favorite one here is I bought a shower head, and I'm getting texts every day about buying another shower head. I don't need another shower head, but they are directly communicating with their entire audience. And I can't think of a better way to do that, because now it's going to drill in my head that brand. And if I need another one, I'll go through them. So thank you so much for attending this session, and looking forward to your questions. I would love it. If you have any questions, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Also have a podcast called The Endless Coffee Cup, which you can find on the website at sitelogic.com.
Well, Matt, that was amazing. That was fantastic. A few of the comments were sort of really loving your voice, and I have to sort of agree. It was, it's so good you don't do commercials. I would have been buying anything you sold. You were trying to sell me. So we do have a couple of questions. We do. So the first question is from James Goodwin. So James has asked, how do you split brand versus non-brand and risk map keywords by AIO exposure to decide where to double down, hold, or exit? Also, what review cadence actually works in practice?
We don't know, because it could change next week. That's I at this point, my best advice is I am committing to things about 70%. Because it's so fluid. This is what I mean. It's like, it reminds me of back in the day. I'll listen to 20 people's advice. I'll decide what to do, and I'll probably only go about 70%, and then I watch. That's the best advice I can give you. Now, brand versus non-brand. And that's the thing. So I'm looking at brand where I know my brand will be searched. And so that I focus on. If my brand shows up for non-brand, that's awesome. But again, I can't depend on AI to be consistent in how they answer that, because it could change next week when they start using Bing instead of Google, or start favoring Reddit less. So that's what I mean. You commit about 70% and watch. There's nothing you can do right now that's going to be 100%. And there's no one who knows what's going to happen next month.
No, that's very true. I think how AI changes a lot faster than traditional SEO. So it is very hard to pinpoint, that's.
It was only 2 months ago that ChatGPT was using Bing. And, now they're using, so, that's what I mean. You can't commit heavy. Be light on your feet. That's like a boxer. Just be light on your feet.
Very good advice. Jacob asked, what's your evidence bar before you say this traffic swing is due to AIO visibility versus seasonality, brand noise, or quite site changes?
Great question, Jacob. That was the seasonality. When we looked at the past 4 years of traffic to the site, it always, May was huge, and then it peaked up into July, August, and then came down around October every year. And so when we see we're going up in May, and then all of a sudden the week that AI Overviews is launched, even the day, it starts just going flat, and it flattened down. Very obviously something wrong. And then you can go look at the page. There's no ranking site showing up within 3 or 4 screens. So, where you used to have that visibility without a scroll on desktop, to now you're a dozen scrolls down. I mean, that's pretty clear evidence. So that's
very clear. And we have one last question from Ruben. Ruben asks, when AIOs take a chunk of informational clicks, which asset types have best defended CTR for you? Video, tools, calculators, images, news, and how do you prioritize what to build first?
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. It's very interesting, because I mean, just content that is not being found in other places. And I'll say that because it's going to be, it's going to be found in other places as everyone learns from each other and starts to compete with each other. So what I am seeing is content that answers questions authoritatively. So it could be text. I'm not seeing video type content be picked up as much. It still seems to be revolved around text. Calculators and tools are good for keeping people there. And so that's going to play into the SEO side.
Yeah.
And so I'm still relying, where I have seen the most results is specifically a question and answer chunk. And that answer is either bullet points or very clear statements of answers, and that is what gets taken more than anything else.
No, absolutely. No, absolutely. And where can people connect with you?
You can connect with me on SiteLogic, SiteLogic.com. And that's the best place. I'm also on LinkedIn. And so, yeah, love to connect with anyone if you got additional questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Honestly, it was very, very impactful. So appreciate your time with that.
Thank you, Rejoice. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. So just a reminder for everyone, again, SE Ranking Tool is for agency in-house professionals. The QR code is on your screen for you to try the expanded free trial. As you've been listening to all the speakers, you now see how much you can do within SE Rankings Tool, from audits to this AI search toolkit, competitive research, Backlink Checker, and so much more. Next slide, please. Again, use your either your personal email address in terms of for the expanded trial, but using your business email address, you can get more out of that trial. There's a lot more that sort of comes with utilizing your business email address. So definitely give it a go. Experience the tool with yourself, test it, trial it, see how you like it. It has amazing features on it that would help to take your SEO game to the next level. And of course, do not forget to follow SE Ranking. You can find SE Ranking on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and YouTube also.